A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
she could have said Storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. A super yacht celebration turns tragic.
Tech tycoon Mike Lynch still missing and feared dead off the coast of Sicily.
Along with his 18-year-old daughter Hannah and 5 other passengers, all of whom were there to mark Lynch's acquittal in a 12-year fraud trial.
US President Joe Biden wipes tears away as he hands the baton on to Kamala Harris at the Democratic National Convention.
Are you ready to vote for freedom? Are you ready to vote for democracy and for America? Let me ask you, are you ready to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz?
The Prime Minister's cracking on with his agenda as he's visiting Wales and launches his plans to make Britain a green energy superpower. We'll be speaking to the Welsh Secretary Jo Stevens a little bit later on this hour.
And as the summer holidays begin to wrap up, we're asking whether being a mother is like having a second full-time job.
80% of mums say their colleagues don't appreciate their role as mothers, and the soap star Natalie Cassidy joins Breakfast this morning to discuss.
And in the sport this morning, Leicester draw with Spurs. A tale of two strikers. Spurs' new one who didn't score and Leicester's really old one who did. Looks like Ivan Toney's off to Saudi, and we have the Australian gold medalist who's defecting to Team GB.
For most of us, a blustery day with frequent showers around, but also some sunshine. How much sunshine and how many showers you get will depend entirely on where you are. I'll have the full details in the forecast coming up soon.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Isabel Webster.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, there's only one story making the front page of every single newspaper this morning. A truly shocking tale. The English tech tycoon Mike Lynch and his 18-year-old daughter are among 6 tourists missing after his luxury yacht sank in a tornado off the coast of Sicily in the early hours of yesterday morning.
Well, the British-registered 56-metre Bayesian had 22 people on board when it went down after being struck by a tornado. A body, believed to be that of the vessel's chef, has been recovered.
Well, divers are now combing the waters as search efforts continue around the wreck. So far, 15 people have been rescued, including the wife of Mike Lynch and a 1-year-old baby girl.
Well, we're joined now by Matthew Shank, chairperson of the Maritime Search and Rescue Council. Very good to see you this morning, Matthew. And such a shocking story. It's actually hard to believe.
Yes, good morning. It really is. It's sort of unprecedented, really, to have a vessel of that size being certified and commercially operated to suffer such a significant event, really, in weather that was pretty severe by all accounts, but should have been within the limits of the vessel itself.
In itself, it is shocking because this is a vessel that has crossed the Atlantic multiple times. It is designed to withstand all sorts of weather and also to be inhabited permanently by a crew. For it to have been sunk in this way, there's some speculation that it could be linked to the size of the vessel's mast, believed to be either the tallest in the world or I think maybe the second tallest. What do you think about some of that, and why would that play a part in it if it is the cause?
Yeah, so there's numerous theories at the moment, and obviously there will be investigations carried out by the Marine Accident Investigation Branch from the UK, but also the Italian authorities. But it's important to look at the vessel type in itself. So the vessel is obviously a sailing vessel, which means it has quite a lot of masts and other devices on board the vessel, which are particularly high. As you said, the mast is either the second highest or the highest in the world. When there's wind and weather, this basically acts almost like a sail in itself. So if it catches the wind, then that can cause the vessel to heel over, to lean over, and affect the stability of the vessel. But again, it's important to note that as a sailing vessel, they'll be designed to deal with these forces that act upon it. But it is important to know that windage area that's provided by the mast is affected when there are strong winds.
Matthew, can you tell us a little bit about your understanding of the conditions in the sea around Palermo in the days before the sinking? Because we're hearing about this water spout, aren't we? Is that something that you would see regularly in the seas in the Mediterranean?
No, I mean, a water spout is pretty rare. They do happen, and they do happen in that area. But again, these aren't weather events that would be predictable. They can be sort of expected in certain areas, but they are rare. Now, the weather forecast on the night was nothing that would have caused any concern to the master, to the captain. There were warnings for thunderstorms, etc., but the proof is sort of in the pudding. If you look at the anchorage, the vessel wasn't the only vessel in the anchorage, and the other vessels in the vicinity weathered quite fine throughout the weather event. We don't know whether it was a waterspout or whether it was a squall that's come through, but in any case, looking at the CCTV from the area and the impact that's had on the vessel, it was a pretty significant weather event that impacted on them.
And he was the vessel was docked just outside Palermo port. The water quite deep there. I believe that the vessel is thought to be about 50 metres below the surface, and there are divers going down there. How much of a challenge? I mean, I've also read reports that they've been able to see bodies through the windows. How much of a challenge is it then to get inside the vessel with all the issues of water pressure and also the risk to the divers as well? Could recovery take a very, very long time in your experience, in your view?
Yes, there are considerations with actually accessing people inside the vessel if they are there. They'll have to use specialist cutting gear and equipment to access it, but they'll also have to do it in a safe way in order to not cause any issues with the divers themselves trying to access it, and also carry out significant damage to the vessel. So they'll have their sort of procedures and way of doing that. It's important to note that there's still a surface search going on as well, so there may still be people on the surface, and it's still an active search and rescue operation as far as I'm aware. However, getting to people inside the vessel may take some time, and the authorities and the emergency services will be working out the most effective way of doing that, but also trying to minimise the damage and the risk to the rescuers.
Rescue effort and those who have been rescued from this luxury yacht. I believe it was something to do with a flare that was set off from a lifeboat, and they were thankfully managed to get to quite quickly.
Yes, so my understanding is that there was a flare sighted from shore, and that the first responder was one of the other vessels that was in the anchorage at the time that went to the life raft to recover the people. There would have been other ways of alerting the authorities ashore that there was an emergency happening. As I said, this vessel was a commercially sort of operated vessel. It has all the latest radio equipment and communication equipment, but being able to operate that in the time that the emergency occurred is one of the key issues there. We don't have any information on whether there was any activation of their onboard emergency systems or any radio communication, but that flare has really initiated that sort of emergency response. But luckily, where they were located, there were a lot of vessels and a lot of eyewitnesses who were able to alert the authorities and effect a rescue.
Matthew Shank, thank you very much, Chairperson for the Maritime Search and Rescue Council, for giving us your insight this morning. And obviously our thoughts go out to all of those involved. The paper's naming some of those missing this morning as not only Mike Lynch, who obviously we know to be this huge tech entrepreneur, sort of British Bill Gates, and his 18-year-old daughter who just got into Oxford University just a couple of days ago, and they were celebrating that. Hannah is also missing. But Jonathan Bloomer, who was the British chairman of Morgan Stanley, and his wife also thought to be missing in their 70s, as well as 2 Americans. We know that there's been at least 1 confirmed death. That was the chef, and 15 people managed to get to safety, including that woman, a 35-year-old woman who was a partner of one of Mike Lynch's companies, who rescued her 1-year-old baby in the dead of night. I mean, I can't imagine how terrifying that must have been.
I mean, the details are so distressing, aren't they? This mother holding her baby above her head in this really choppy water. You can imagine, as you say, in the dead of night. She actually says she dropped the baby for a few seconds before lifting the baby back out again. But thankfully, herself, her partner and their 1-year-old daughter are safe. They're some of the ones that were, that survived this tale.
And Mike Lynch's wife, believed to have survived, has been recovered, and she obviously waiting to find out what's happened to her husband and her daughter. But the story of his life, not only to have this huge success with autonomy, which he then sold for, I think, $11 billion, then the legal case, extradited or fighting extradition, 12-year battle, won in court against the odds, finally
only 3
acquitted
months
just
ago.
a few months ago. His co-defendant in that trial was killed by a car on Saturday in Cambridgeshire. Then his daughter gets into Oxford, and then this freak event happens with this water spout. I mean, it is the stuff that you couldn't write, really.
Well, it sounds like a film, doesn't it?
Does.
And what a tragedy. You just can't even imagine that something like this could happen.
I just really hope they can recover all of those that are still missing as soon as possible.
Well, of course, we'll bring you any update that we have throughout the morning here on GB News.
Right, let's turn our attention, shall we, to the Democratic National Convention. And in the last few hours, it's all begun in Chicago.
Well, the Democrat... Okay, that was a bit late on that pause. Well, the Democrat nominee, Kamala Harris, made an early surprise appearance, and in her opening line, she praised President Biden and thanked him for his leadership.
I want to kick us off by celebrating our incredible President Joe Biden, who will be speaking later tonight. Joe, thank you for your historic leadership, for your lifetime of service to our nation, and for all you will continue to do. We are forever grateful to you.
All the big names were out in force. The former Secretary of State and once presidential hopeful Hillary Clinton took to the stage as well.
However, not without a little controversy, as Mrs Clinton had to talk over chants of lock him up as she mocked Donald Trump.
And finally, Biden himself wiped away tears before calling Trump a loser and fully endorsing Harris's campaign.
Let me ask you, are you ready to vote for freedom? Are you ready to vote for democracy and for America? Let me ask you, are you ready to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz?
Well, let's cross over live now to Washington, D.C., to our US correspondent, Stephen Edginton, to give us the latest. Good to see you this morning, Stephen. And a busy first day at the DNC. And let's start with that emotional Joe Biden, shall we, wiping away tears as he officially passes on the baton to Kamala Harris.
This was meant to be Joe Biden's convention. This was meant to be his opportunity to accept the nomination for the presidency for the second time. But it didn't end up this way. And instead, he was forced onto a dead time slot. After 11 p.m., he started speaking on the Eastern Coast. Many people would have been asleep. And he was giving a very angry, bitter speech directed at Donald Trump. He repeated something that the Republicans have said is a simple lie. He said that Donald Trump claimed that there were good people on both sides of a white nationalist rally in Charlottesville, when actually Trump at the time said explicitly he wasn't talking about white nationalists and neo-Nazis. Joe Biden's speech also discussed Israel. He said that the protesters outside of the Democratic Convention, the pro-Gaza, pro-Palestinian protesters, had a point that too many innocent people were being killed on both sides of the conflict. He was enthusiastic, obviously, about Kamala Harris in that clip that we just saw. And as I say, a very, very angry speech directed towards his former opponent, Donald Trump.
OK, Stephen, thanks very much indeed. Well, let's get some analysis now from the foreign correspondent, Sarah Firth, who joins us from the States as well. Good morning to you, Sarah. Look, there's lots of commentary in the papers, and it feels as though the sort of discussion has moved on from Biden as sort of falling asleep at the wheel and, you know, losing this and being a car crash, to Donald Trump having a meltdown and Kamala Harris taking this home. I even read that Republicans were warning Trump yesterday that he really needs to drill down into policy now, otherwise he could lose this. Is that your reading of this?
Yes, good morning, Isabel and Ellie. You're absolutely right, Isabel. It's real energy that we've seen come out of the opening of the Democratic National Convention. You've got everyone gathered there in Chicago, and we heard that very impassioned speech from Kamala Harris herself, talking about her leadership, thanking President Biden, of course, for his leadership, his historic service, and also laying out that fighting speak that we've come to expect from her since she stepped into this role as presidential hopeful. Though she hasn't yet accepted the party's nomination. It's thought that will happen at the end of the convention, probably on Thursday, when she will accept formally that nomination. But Isabel, you're absolutely right. Since we've seen President Biden move aside and Kamala Harris step up into the spotlight, start to campaign, start to give these rallies and these types of speeches, it is a slightly different Kamala Harris that Americans have seen. And we've seen that play out. There has been a bump in the polls in her favor. You listen to what the Republicans are saying. You've even got very well-known, well-respected Republicans, people like Lindsey Graham, coming out and admitting, yeah, this has been a wake-up call for the Republican Party, who, you know, in backing Trump, they had their powerful speaker, they had the man who can rally the troops. And like you said, President Biden was seen as being, you know, slightly asleep at the wheel, and he wasn't very well in the polls. Well, it's all been shaken up. And as you're seeing now playing out at the DNC in Chicago, this renewed energy and enthusiasm behind the Democratic Party, and that very much translating in the polls right now.
But there's still a long way to go, isn't there, for Kamala Harris? She's appealing to women, she's appealing to young people, she's appealing to black voters, perhaps where Joe Biden wasn't. But still, Sarah, those polls are still very tight, aren't they? What else can she do in the next few months to really edge ahead?
They're very, very tight. And look, the polls are difficult, especially in a situation like this, because there are some massive issues, some massive barriers that Kamala Harris is going to have to overcome. One is the fact that you had this huge change up in strategy and leadership, and what happened with President Biden. That is, when you go out and speak to voters, when you speak to Americans, even here in Washington, D.C., there is really a sense that they weren't told perhaps as much as they should have been about President Biden, about the situation. It was a real shock across the country, and we spoke about it at the time, Ellie, I remember, just the sort of shock that reverberated throughout the nation when President Biden had that appalling debate. And remember, Kamala Harris is his vice president. She's part of that inner circle. So she's going to have to overcome a lot of questioning in a lot of Americans' minds that I've been speaking to, saying, look, you know, well, she did know how much was being kept from us. You've also got a lot of economic issues. That's the same with every single election. It is no different going into this election. Inflation is really high here. And a lot of people are seeing that as something, again, that they blame on President Biden, on the Democratic Party. And again, as Kamala Harris having been pretty much at the front and center of leading the administration as well alongside Joe Biden. So she's really trying at the moment, what we're seeing from her is to lay out her own sort of agenda, her own strategy. And Ellie, you're right, she's ticking so many of those boxes. She is speaking for the middle class. And we actually had AOC took to the stage, another sort of powerful woman with a lot of support, saying that she is, for the first time, someone who understands rent payments, who understands grocery bills. She's seen as more relatable in that sense. There was a bit of a sort of woman power element to the first night speeches. You had Hillary Clinton, who'd been a presidential hopeful. You had AOC speaking, and you had Kamala Harris herself. And Hillary Clinton, interestingly, she spoke about Kamala Harris perhaps being the first one to finally break through that glass ceiling. But if you cast your mind back to when Hillary Clinton was a hopeful, there was a lot of energy around this female presidential hopeful, and it didn't go her way in the end. So you guys are absolutely right. There's still everything to play for. This week, of course, though, all eyes are going to be on Chicago, are going to be on these speeches. They are historic speeches. It is a historic moment. It's a very, very exciting election. Now, everything has been shaken up in this way. And as we heard from Kamala Harris, she said it again, when we fight, we win. She is sounding confident right now.
OK, well, we've got a few months to go yet. But for now, Sarah Firth, thanks very much indeed.
Now, at 6:19, let's take a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom this morning.
The woman who died following a triple stabbing in Manchester has been named as 43-year-old Alberta Obernehm. 2 others are in a critical condition following the attack. A 22-year-old man, believed to be known to the victims, has been arrested on suspicion of murder.
The US has called on Hamas to agree to a proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza after it gained the backing of Israel. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the latest push for a deal was probably the best and possibly last opportunity, urging both sides towards agreement.
A new royal biography's claimed Queen Elizabeth found the former US President Donald Trump very rude. A Voyage Around the Queen, which has been written by Craig Brown, alleges that the late Queen disliked Trump's manner and questioned his arrangement with the First Lady, Melania Trump.
Now, Sir Keir Starmer's agenda is in full swing as he stops off in Wales in a bid to begin his mission to make Britain a clean energy superpower.
Well, Starmer started the week by calling for working from home to become the norm, as Number 10 warned that a culture of presenteeism is bad for productivity.
Well, the Prime Minister went even further and confirmed his plans to introduce a right to switch off, where staff can't be contacted outside of office hours.
Well, joining us in the studio this morning is the former Chief of Staff to Nadeem Zahawi, James Price. Good morning. Welcome to the programme. Where should we start? Let's talk about this green energy plan that we're going to be hearing lots about from Labour today. They want to make onshore wind a big thing again. There was an effective ban for nearly a decade under the Tories. I believe the science has moved on. You can have fewer turbines to get more energy. But is this going to be popular with, our NIMBYs, our British population, the electorate?
No, it's one of the few things that I think that Labour haven't messed up too much on in terms of the actual policy itself. I think that energy security is really, really important. It's important to economic growth. Literally, it keeps the lights on, unlike things just figuratively keeping the lights on, keeping the show on the road. But I think that it is obviously unpopular because people were concerned. There are concerns about, birds dying and things like that. The problem we've got is that fundamentally, if people take one miserable thing home from what I'm going to say today, the UK is just not a very rich country anymore. We cannot be so picky about the kinds of infrastructure we build, about where we build houses. You mentioned NIMBYs. People say not in my backyard. Housing is a big problem. Energy infrastructure is a big problem. And given all the other stuff that I fear that Labour are going to do that will make energy security much more precarious, we've seen they're not going to be renewing things in the North Sea. That's just going to benefit the Norwegians. That will make us more dependent on other countries and make us less energy secure. We cannot be picky and choosy about the kind of infrastructure we get built, and we should just be focusing on trying to make it as efficient or as attractive in the case of housing as we possibly can.
It's hard to marry the two up, isn't it? When we talk about growth in the economy and we talk about productivity and how important those things are, but then in the same breath we're talking about work from home and feel the need to switch off and have a nice work-life balance. It doesn't seem as though you can achieve both at the same time, or am I wrong?
No, I think you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Let's just take on the energy point. The Energy Secretary is now Ed Miliband. Everybody will remember him. This is a guy who, when he was leader of the opposition, trying to become Prime Minister, he didn't understand why do companies have to give out dividends anyway? Didn't understand even the rudiments of how the private sector seemed to work. And as you say, this thing about the working from home stuff, I mean, it's no surprise. Labour, now they are in office, are not very efficient themselves. So maybe they just assume that other people going into offices will not be efficient themselves. Again, you've got Rachel Reeves. She did, I think, 6 years working in a bank. OK, that's pretty good as private sector experience goes. I think that's more than almost the rest of the entire new cabinet put together. These people don't understand growth. They don't understand productivity. They don't understand what's required to get an economy humming. And that's going to be a concern for all of us.
What about, the other challenges? We saw record numbers of people crossing the Channel in the last few days, the highest since Starmer came to power. That's going to be, isn't it, the ultimate test for this government?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. What have they done on it so far? They've done nothing except scrap some of the Conservatives' old policies because it was the Conservatives who'd done it. Now, I'm someone who actually thinks that whilst we all made too much of a fuss about the Rwanda scheme, I think it's something that absolutely would have worked. You hear what the people in the camps in Calais, they were very concerned about this idea. They thought that, even if not everybody obviously goes to Rwanda, the fact that some would. And the crucial bit, Rwanda is a bit of a red herring on this, the law that said that if you cross into the United Kingdom illegally, you will never be allowed to settle here. Very obviously sensible policy that should be enacted, and that's been scrapped as well. And that's a big concern. What's Labour's plan? They don't have one.
Can we talk about the Tory leadership race for a moment? Because Tom Tugendhat has got the backing of 8 Scottish Tory MSPs now. They think he'll be a help, not a hindrance to north of the border. What do you make of that?
I think that's really good for him. I think that the politics north of the border... I mean, I don't even like saying north of the border, actually. It is one united kingdom. The people of Scotland voted to stay as part of this, which has been the most successful union in the history of anything, as far as I can remember.
There is a border, so you're OK. I'm sure most people still have a Scottish identity if they voted
That's
to
very
remain.
true. You could be Scottish and British, you could be Welsh and British, all the rest of it. Of course, though, when you do cross that border and it says Hassan Gual, well, that is a language that was never actually spoken in that area. That was all kind of earlier Welsh, but that's beside the point. I I think it's great if the Tories can re-engage with these things. I think it's wonderful for the United Kingdom that the Scottish nationalists lost so many seats in Scotland in the Westminster election. And that's a great thing. I think that there are very many Conservatives in Scotland who must feel very neglected. And I think the people who are unionists first, who don't like the obvious kinds of corruption that have happened under people like Nicola Sturgeon and Hamza Yusuf, and people like that, I think they feel very underrepresented. And of course they've been, well, I'm a sort of Lib Dem, but I like to vote for the union, or I'm Labour and I like to vote for the union, or I'm Tory, I vote for the union. That's why you get the unionist vote often splitting. So if we can sort out the unionism case for the Conservatives, that would be great for the Tories, or great for Labour, as long as we keep the union together.
But even with this backing for Tom Tugendhat, it all comes down to the Tory membership, doesn't it? And at the moment, their sweetheart is James Cleverly, former Home Secretary.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It seems that there are different polls that show you who is popular amongst different sluices and tranches and cuts of current members, or is it 2024 Tory voters or 2019 Tory voters? I know there are some concerns inside the Central Office about this costing a lot and dragging on. Frankly, people are paying attention to the shambles of the new government at the moment, and I think having a long, drawn-out contest is actually a really good thing for us to get all the different ideological ideas out there. What do people really believe in?
Can have a holiday, no less.
It may be bad timing tactically for her, but I do stand by, I think, the idea that people are allowed to have breaks
she's in the middle of hustings, you're supposed to be.
What's your sense of where the race is at? Because it's funny talking about this, is that you look at the I newspaper this morning, and Jenrick is apparently the one being most backed for leader by Tory donors. So it's really difficult to know, actually, where this race is at.
Exactly, depending on how you look at it. I think that there's, I reckon, about 3 who could probably do it still. I think it's probably down to kind of Cleverly, Jenrick, Badenoch.
OK.
I think it was probably Kemi's to lose at the start of this, and if she'd have come out of the traps maybe and made it sort of herself unassailable, that would have been one thing. I think that when you look at someone like Jenrick, he started off as this very, in his own words, very centrist, cardboard cutout politician, was sent into exactly very mean.
That was
mean
what he was
pun. Exactly, and he's admitted it himself.
Yeah.
And he was shoved into the Home Office to keep an eye on Suella Braverman as a Rishi Sunak loyalist. But you get into the Home Office, it's happened to friends of mine who've worked in there. You may be a kind of cuddly liberal, libertarian, whatever. You go and you spend your time dealing with the worst criminals, the worst terrorists, the worst illegal, all the rest of it, and then you see that the system is not designed to be able to actually deal with these problems that are so important to the country and to the British people. And in his own words, he was radicalised by the facts, and I think that's really compelling.
Some are very suspicious about that, aren't they? And they think that this epiphany might have something to do with perhaps becoming leader in his own personal ambition. But, you know...
I'm sure none of us are that cynical at all. It happened to Keith Joseph in the 1970s. He had this kind of radicalisation as well about the state of the country, the state of how nothing was working, getting things fixed. And alongside Margaret Thatcher, they came to kind of free market economics and the sort of radical ideas about liberty and trusting people. And what happened? They saved the country. Maybe it can happen again.
OK. James Price, thanks very much indeed. Oh, we should say, by the way, before we say goodbye, congratulations, because you got down on one knee on Friday and your lady accepted.
She did indeed. I'm the luckiest man on earth. Thank you very much.
Oh, James, that's so lovely. Congratulations. We're over the moon for you.
We look forward to buying a hat.
Yes.
Deal.
So much to look forward to. It's nice to have some happy news, isn't it?
Absolutely. Right, will the weather be happy or not? Here's Aidan McGibbon with all the details.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Some sunshine around today, but also a number of heavy showers, along with gusty winds, making it feel unseasonably unpleasant. We will see some sun, though, first thing across parts of the Midlands into Wales, the south and southwest. There will also be a lot of cloud around, and there'll be increasingly heavy and frequent showers moving in, especially to the north and the west. And western Scotland prone to longer spells of rain, along with a strengthening wind, 50-mile-per-hour gusts near coasts and hills. So all in all, an unsettled and changeable day towards the northwest. Fewer showers in the southeast, and in the sunshine feeling pleasant enough. The same can't be said for western Scotland as the winds pick up and those showers gang together to form longer spells of wet weather across Argyll, West Highland, into parts of the Central Belt, for example, heading into the evening. Northern Ireland also prone to frequent and heavy downpours, especially across the north and the west. Showers moving through western England and Wales, but fewer downpours through the Midlands, the south and southeast. And a fine end to the day here, it has to be said, with fewer clouds compared with how we start things. Now, Tuesday night and into Wednesday brings further showers into the north and west, but those showers tend to fade away as the night progresses. And we'll see some clear spells developing. A fresh night to come, 11 or 12 Celsius for most, single figures in some sheltered rural parts. But actually some decent sunny spells in the south and east first thing Wednesday before it turns increasingly cloudy from the west, and that cloud will bring spells of rain by the afternoon into western Scotland and Northern Ireland. Eventually that rain spilling into northwest England and Wales. It's going to turn heavier and more persistent through Wednesday night and Thursday, at risk of localised flooding in western Scotland.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, some good news this morning. There's 2 weeks left to get your entry into our £30,000 Great British Giveaway. It's the biggest prize that we've ever given away so far this year.
So if you haven't entered already, what have you been doing? Here are all the details of how you can do it.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours, but time is ticking. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, good luck, good luck. And Paul is here.
Hello.
What's coming up in the sport?
You know what? I don't mind staying up sometimes late if it's past my bedtime, if I'm going to watch football, even though I know I've got to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Why you're so croaky this morning?
If Spurs manage to win, but when they don't win, I find it so tiring.
Who were they playing?
Leicester last night. So we'll talk about that. I know. I'm OK, though. It's the first game of the season. You always want to win the first game of the season. There's an Australian cyclist who is now going to represent Team GB.
I heard about this,
Yeah.
Defecting.
Yes, it is a defect. It is. I don't know whether they met on a bridge. An Australian went that way and Team GB went that way. But anyway, so we'll talk about that. And also, I love a world record. It's a very bizarre world record, but we will discuss that.
The more bizarre, the better. We look forward to it. We'll be back with Paul in just a moment.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Bev Turner. Thank you for joining us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm. You made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry, Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Right, here he is, the man himself, Paul Coit. A little bit hoarse this morning.
Am I? I didn't think I was, and I think I am.
Yeah, you are, but that's OK, because your team lost.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't lose.
You said Leicester won.
No, they didn't. They drew.
Oh.
They drew, so it's one.
Things are not too bad.
It's
What are you moaning about them?
bad. Look, it started off really well. So it was at Leicester, and Spurs started off magnificently and thinking this is going to be great. They went 1-0 up, and then, unfortunately, the second half, it was a tale of two halves and a tale of two strikers, because Dominic Solanke, who is the new Spurs striker who signed from Bournemouth, so there was high hopes for him. And then playing for Leicester is Jamie Vardy, and you know Jamie Vardy, of course. You know Jamie Vardy.
You know all about the Vardys.
You know very much about the Vardy. So how old do you think Jamie Vardy is?
38.
63 years old. 63, and your eyes are almost saying, are you serious? 37. Close enough.
I said 38, that was very good.
Very good. 37. So, and he scored, but the thing is, when he scored, he made a kind of like a signal to Spurs fans, because it was like 2006 all over again when they won the title and Spurs were saying he was pointing at his Premier League badge on his shoulder and then going 1, pointing at his Premier League badge, and then going 0 and then pointing at the Spurs fans, if to say, I've won a Premier League, you haven't. But then again, which I thought was not very nice.
It's not very nice.
Although, if he'd done it to Christian Romero, who was standing right next to him, he could have just said, well, how many World Cups have you won? So then it could have been a very nice one-upmanship. But anyway, Spurs dominated the first half. Leicester came back in the second, and Jamie Vardy still scoring goals. Rodrigo Bentancur, Spurs midfielder, though, was knocked out, looked in all sorts of trouble, so that was halted for 8 minutes. So paramedics run on, and but thankfully he's OK. But 1-1, so Leicester will be playing Fulham away on Saturday, and Spurs will be at home to it.
Now, yesterday you were saying, where is Ivan Toney? Where's he gone?
Yeah.
What's going on today? You have an update for us?
Well, it looks like he's probably going to Saudi Arabia, and I'm not sure how I feel about that.
Following the money.
It's
another one.
It is, of course it is. Now, Ivan Toney then at Brentford, and he missed the game on Saturday, and it looked like it was his decision, because often players, you think, I don't want to get injured, I don't want to have any chance of ruining my move. Now, there were big clubs that were in for him. It seemed about 6 months ago that looked obvious that they were going to go for him. There was Arsenal and Liverpool. I mean, everybody was linked with him, but never happened. So then the prices dropped a little bit. So now it looks like he's going to be going to Saudi Arabia. I mean, what would you do? I mean, if you're playing Premier League football, you're making a lot of money, you're doing very well, but then Saudi Arabia come in with probably eye-watering money.
Tax-free?
Yeah, but then again, you're going to be earning a lot of money anyway as a professional
human rights.
Well, that does come into it as well. But so the thing is, it looks like he's probably going to go. You often get, it's like live golf in Saudi Arabia. You know, you get these people that say, oh, well, it's going to secure my family's future. You know, how secure do you want your family to be?
Exactly.
How many generations do you want them to be secure for?
Yeah.
So that looks like it's going to be possible and actually quite likely. So it's Al Ahly in Saudi Arabia.
Okay.
£60 million. I think it'd be a shame to lose him to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
But it looks like his no-look penalty is now going to be a no-look move to Saudi Arabia.
Can we talk about this Australian gold medalist who's defecting?
Well, yeah, he's ours now. Thanks.
To Team GB.
Matt Richardson, his name is. 3-time gold medalist. 3-time medalist, I should say. Wasn't gold medalist at the Olympics. So he was born in this country. He was born in Kent. and then he moved over to Australia when he was 9 years old. So that was where he then got his love of cycling. So now it seems that he's going to be defecting and moving to Team GB. His girlfriend is Emma Finucane. You know, the...
Oh, the...
Yes, her! That's right.
Yes.
So, you know,
Oh,
she won 3 medals as well.
They're a power couple.
Well, that's it. It could be the power couple. It could be just...
That's why he's
just like
joining
Jason
Team
Kenny and
GB,
Laura
wants to be-
Kenny. They could be the power couple.
Wants to be with her, that's
Could
nice.
be with her. So, yeah, so...
love in this programme.
Of course, we make it romantic. It's like, oh, he wants to be with her.
Now we're interested in the sport.
Yeah. Get a love
sport
story involved.
It's all about love. And it's a love story. And,
Do you reckon that's what
and
it
they'll be
is, though?
riding there, but in fact, they might even have a tandem.
decided.
And they could cycle along together round the track. What a lovely... It'll be like the scene from Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Oh. Has he said that's why he's coming to Team GB?
No, he hasn't.
I reckon that's what it is.
But that's our
I'll fill in the gaps.
interpretation.
Yeah.
So that's obviously what it is.
That's it.
It's not about the cycling. It's not about coming back to his home country. It's not about representing GB. It's because...
He's in love. Yep. Perfect.
On that note, we're going to love you and leave you.
Happily ever after. Thanks, Paul Coit.
Beautiful.
Still to come, we'll be telling you just what the late Queen really thought about the former US President Donald Trump. That's next on GB News Breakfast.
The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK for a Tuesday morning. In Kent, the coastbound M20, that speed restriction once again this morning for Operation Brock from Junction 8 for Leeds Castle and the Maidstone services to Junction 9 at Ashford. In Hampshire, the northbound M3, one lane is closed due to emergency barrier repairs at Junction 7 for Basingstoke South and Junction 6 for Basingstoke itself. And in Merseyside, in Knowsley, the M57 northbound, the entry slip road remains closed due to emergency resurfacing repairs. That's at Junction 5 for the East Lancs Road this morning. And in West Yorkshire, the M62 eastbound, one lane is closed due to emergency barrier repairs. Junction 30 at Rothwell to Junction 31 at Castleford, that will affect you. And in London, in Hackney, Kenworthy Road is blocked due to a railway bridge being struck by a vehicle around Hassett Road this morning. That will affect you there, of course, too. That's the latest. You're up to date.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Good afternoon, Britain. Weekdays from midday.
It's a very difficult issue, this, right? As far as we know, the boxer with male chromosomes was born with female genitalia.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually quite simple. You know, sex in humans is binary and immutable because we are mammals. And there is a minority of people who have disorders of sexual development, and that can affect a person's reproductive organs. But these people are male or female. And yesterday, what we witnessed was basically just glorified male violence against women and girls. The difference is, I mean, that happens every day all over the world. And the difference is that in every other circumstance, we consider beating up women to be wrong, but it was deemed acceptable by those at the IOC because they're claiming that it's sport, but it's not. It's violence and it's wrong.
Peter, Lottie's right, isn't she, that we've been talking a lot recently about violence against women and girls, and regardless of whether this person is intersex or transgender, they have male chromosomes. That means they have a very, very distinct biological advantage that could actually be fatal to a female athlete competing against them.
Well, of course, sport does need to be fair, and we do need to examine this case very thoroughly. There are reports that the boxer, Eamonn Khalif, was born a biological woman. She is not transgender. She is not non-binary. She is not intersex. She may have elevated levels of testosterone, but that's entirely natural. It's beyond her control. It's the way she was born. And that is why the International Olympic Committee has said that she falls within the rules.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. We're going through what's making the papers this morning. Quite frankly, just one story making most of the front pages, and this is the shocking story. We actually broke it on this programme just before we came off air yesterday. And as the details have been coming through, we can speak to Alex Armstrong now and Nikki Hodgson just about how shocking this story really is. I mean, it's the sort of story where my jaw has been on the floor multiple times.
Absolutely. We were both saying this. I mean, the level of detail that we have for a start, I mean, you don't just write these things... I mean,
people will just kind of broadly say, well, it's a tragedy, it's a freak accident, these things happen. But, I mean, the level of fear that all the people on that yacht must have felt is kind of, you know, beyond the pale. And in particular, this morning, there's one story about a mum who was on that yacht, and she had a baby with her, and she lost her baby in the water for 2 seconds.
In the dark?
In the dark.
middle of a storm?
And just with the baby, you know what it's like. You can't even fathom what that must have felt like. Do everything to just keep going. But it's just... It's the stuff that film plots are made of.
This whole story is so wild. It really is. I mean, the guy's the Bill Gates of Britain. I mean, first of all, we were just talking about this in the break. It's absolutely insane to think this freak tornado has hit their yacht and caused so much devastation. But I mean, not only that, but only recently he was just acquitted of this big...
In June.
Trial. In June. He was extradited for it, as we were saying, Isabel. And so that's this big... This whole party was to celebrate that acquittal. And just Saturday, I believe it was, his co-defendant was also killed in a car accident. This whole thing is so wild.
It's the stuff you expect to see in a film.
A Netflix show, you know?
Completely far-fetched.
Honestly.
We're going to press pause and come back to you in just a moment and talk a bit more about that story. There's so much more to get into on that. But I want to interrupt you because we're joined now by the Welsh Secretary of State, Joe Stevens. Very good morning to you, Joe. I know that you've got the Prime Minister in Wales with you today. He arrived yesterday. Tell us a little bit about what he'll be doing today, because my understanding is he's off to visit a renewable site for wind turbines, and within 72 hours of having won the election, they reversed the effective Conservative Party ban on these huge turbines that we can expect to be seeing popping up right across Great Britain. So tell us a little bit about today.
So the Prime Minister's on his second day of a visit to Wales, and he's with the First Minister, Llywelyn Morgan, in Carmarthenshire today, visiting an onshore wind farm. We haven't had a ban on onshore wind in Wales, where there had been in England under the previous Conservative government. We've lifted the ban in England, and today's visit is about showing how two Labour governments, one in Wales, one in Westminster, can work together to deliver that energy security, to bring down bills, and to create new jobs through green energy so that we reach that target of clean power in the United Kingdom by 2030.
We have to improve our energy security, don't we? That's got to be the #1 mission here. And bearing in mind, of course, that you're not renewing the North Sea licences.
Well, we need to have a green transition. We've got to get to renewable energy by 2030. And the reasons for that are threefold. Firstly, that it will bring down bills permanently for businesses and households across the United Kingdom, because renewable energy is far cheaper than fossil fuels. Secondly, it will create masses of new jobs. So, for example, in Wales, we've got huge capacity for offshore wind in the Celtic Sea, where we can create 5,000 new construction jobs, and we can create a 1.4 billion boost to the economy, and our #1 mission is economic growth. And thirdly, the point that you made about energy security, so that we're not ever in the position where we have been when Putin invaded Ukraine, and we were in hock to Russia, relying on imports of gas.
Expect to see a rapid increase then in the number of wind turbines going up. You want to try and double the amount of energy produced by these sorts of machines by 2030. And you'll understand there'll be people listening and watching the programme this morning who'll be thinking, hang on a minute, we've heard all these reports that Labour are saying locals will have as little say as possible when it comes to development on the green belt. Am I about to have a wind turbine put up right next to where I live? And we'll be legitimately concerned about what the landscape will look like. I mean, why aren't you focusing on offshore more than onshore?
Well, we're doing everything. So we're going to do onshore wind, we're going to do offshore wind, we're going to do new nuclear, so all types of renewable energy, solar, for example. But this is about, and this is what we've been doing in Wales in terms of local communities that host infrastructure then gain a benefit through cheaper bills. So they will get an additional discount on their bills as a result of hosting the infrastructure that is helping to deliver renewable energy, clean power by 2030 across the United Kingdom. So the project that the Prime Minister and the First Minister are seeing today in Carmarthenshire is exactly one of those projects where the local community are benefiting through discounts to their bills.
Llywelyn Morgan is getting along as First Minister, because it certainly looked really cosy with Sir Keir Starmer, as you say, a Labour government now in Westminster and in Wales as well. But there's surely got to be tension behind the scene. I mean, the Westminster government is very, very focused now on that £22 billion black hole in the economy. But the Wales government, they want money, don't they? They want investment. That's what we're talking about today. And then we've got the huge issue of waiting lists in Wales at a record high.
Well, firstly, on investment, Wales will have its share of the amounts of money that we have announced. So Great British Energy, £8.3 billion of investment over this Parliament. I'm hoping to see a lot of that come to Wales because of the potential we have to deliver those renewable energy targets for Wales and for the United Kingdom. So we will play our part in that, and there will be investment into Wales as there will be into all parts of the country, because if we're going to achieve economic growth, which is our #1 mission, then it has to be contributions from all parts of the country to deliver for all parts of the country as well. We can't just have London and South East trying to turbocharge the economy and everywhere else loses out. This is about every single part, every nation, every region benefiting from that economic growth. And on waiting lists, yes, there are challenges in Wales, just like there are in England on waiting lists, and it's a shared challenge and one that both governments will face together. And that's why I'm really pleased that we are working closely with the First Minister to look at those shared challenges and how we help each other bring down those waiting lists, because we know that by bringing down waiting lists, we get more people back to work. That creates a boost for economic growth as well. So there are win-win situations, but the reset of the relationship, having two Labour governments working together, is going to deliver big benefits, not just for Wales, but for the rest of the United Kingdom.
Priority that we're hearing time and again from the Prime Minister is to try and get this growth, to try and G up the economy. And yet in the same breath, he's saying that he thinks that more people working from home would be good for growth. Run that by me again, because I can see lots of business leaders up and down the country very concerned to be hearing about that.
Well, that's not the message that we're getting from business leaders. We've been talking to them for a long time. And obviously working from home has become part of people's lives where it's appropriate. And businesses make their own decisions with their own workers about what is appropriate in terms of being in the office, or, if your job means you have to be in your workplace, you have to be in your workplace. But at the heart of this is increasing productivity. We've got a long-term problem over the last 14 years where we've had a stagnant economy, and a big part of that has been poor productivity. So by increasing productivity, whether people are working from home or working in a workplace, that will contribute to economic growth. So, businesses have been talking to me about it. There are lots of savings that they make from not having to have as much office space, for example. So there are benefits to it for businesses as well. I used to run the business. I understand about the overheads, and I understand how you make those differences to your bottom line.
Stevens, the Welsh Secretary, really good to see you this morning. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Well, there's just time now to get some thoughts from our panel this morning, listening to all of that. Alex, first of all, on working from home, I know that you don't get to do that as part of your job very much.
No.
And look, it's a debate that I think, you look to Europe and they will always argue we can squeeze, all of our work into 4 days and our output is not affected. But there are people who are shirking from home, aren't there?
Oh,
is this
absolutely.
going to be good for the economy?
Well, look, what it worries me is the impact it has on the city, because I go to the barbers and I'll go on a Monday and it's dead. They're like, there's no one here. And it used to be
people still have to get their hair cut. Well, so they just get it cut somewhere else.
Well, they do, but they also don't. There's also places like that will close down. So there's going to be a knock-on effect. But hopefully they'll be repatriated to more local communities. That's the hope, at least. But look, there are people who work very hard from home. I'm not saying that they don't, but I do think there's something about going to the office, that productivity, that coming in. You guys are here almost every day of the week as well. Some people can't do their jobs without being here. What I worry about is the hospitals and the doctor's surgeries.
We've got about 15, 20 seconds, Nikki, but just your sort of take on it all.
Well, I mean, I'm all about home working because I have a small child, so it works very well with being able to partly care for her and, partly work. So it has its benefits.
Yep.
Thanks, you two. We'll see you in an hour. Let's check out the weather now.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Some sunshine around today, but also a number of heavy showers, along with gusty winds, making it feel unseasonably unpleasant. We will see some sun, though, first thing across parts of the Midlands into Wales, the south and southwest. There will also be a lot of cloud around, and there'll be increasingly heavy and frequent showers moving in, especially to the north and the west. And western Scotland prone to longer spells of rain, along with a strengthening wind, 50-mile-per-hour gusts near coasts and hills. So all in all, an unsettled and changeable day towards the northwest. Fewer showers in the southeast, and in the sunshine feeling pleasant enough. The same can't be said for western Scotland as the winds pick up, and those showers gang together to form longer spells of wet weather across Argyll, West Highland, into parts of the central belt, for example, heading into the evening. Northern Ireland also prone to frequent and heavy downpours, especially across the north and the west. Showers moving through western England and Wales, but fewer downpours through the Midlands, the south and southeast. And a fine end to the day here, it has to be said, with fewer clouds compared with how we start things. Now, Tuesday night and into Wednesday brings further showers into the north and west, but those showers tend to fade away as the night progresses, and we'll see some clear spells developing. A fresh night to come, 11 or 12 Celsius for most, single figures in some sheltered rural parts, but actually some decent sunny spells in the south and east first thing Wednesday, before it turns increasingly cloudy from the west, and that cloud will bring spells of rain by the afternoon into western Scotland and Northern Ireland, eventually that rain spilling into northwest England and Wales. It's going to turn heavier and more persistent through Wednesday night and Thursday, risk of localised flooding in western Scotland.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News. The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK for a Tuesday morning. In Kent, the coastbound M20, we've currently got that speed restriction in place due to Operation Brock. That's Junction 8 for Leeds Castle and the Maidstone services to Junction 9 at Ashford. In Hampshire, the northbound M3, all lanes are now open after those emergency barrier repairs from Junction 7 for Basingstoke South to Junction 6 for Basingstoke. And in Buckinghamshire, the London-bound M40, all traffic temporarily being held due to obstruction on the road just before Junction 4 for the High Wycombe Handy Cross roundabout. And in Merseyside, the M57 northbound, the entry slip road is closed due to emergency resurfacing repairs. That's at Junction 5 for the A580 for the East Lancs Road. And in West Yorkshire, the eastbound M62, one lane closed due to emergency barrier repairs from Junction 30 at Rothwell to Junction 31 at Castleford this morning. Europe Today.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours, but time is ticking. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at 90 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
A very good morning to you. A super yacht celebration turns tragic.
The tech tycoon Mike Lynch is still missing and feared dead off the coast of Sicily.
Along with his 18-year-old daughter Hannah and 5 other passengers, all of whom were there to mark Lynch's acquittal in a 12-year fraud trial.
In other news, the US President Joe Biden has been wiping tears away as he hands the baton on to Kamala Harris at the Democratic National Convention.
Are you ready to vote for freedom? Are you ready to vote for democracy and for America? Let me ask you, are you ready to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz?
Prime Minister cracks on with his agenda as he visits Wales and launches his plans to make Britain a green energy superpower.
And as the summer holidays begin to wrap up, we're asking this morning if being a mother is, well, basically a full-time second job.
Well, 80% of mums say their colleagues don't appreciate their role as mothers. Soap star Natalie Cassidy will join Breakfast this morning to tell us more.
And in the sport this morning, Leicester draw with Spurs and a tale of 2 strikers. Spurs' new one who didn't score and Leicester's really old one who did. Looks like Ivan Toney's off to Saudi, the Australian medalist defecting to Team GB.
For most of us, a blustery day with frequent showers around, but also some sunshine. How much sunshine and how many showers you get will depend entirely on where you are. I'll have the full details in the forecast coming up soon.
It's just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Isabel Webster.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Well, a really big story for us this morning on the front of almost all of the newspapers. This is about the English tech tycoon Mike Lynch and his daughter. They're among 6 tourists still missing after a super yacht sank yesterday off the coast of Sicily in the early hours.
Well, the British-registered 56-metre Bayesian had 22 people on board when it went down after being struck by a tornado. A body, believed to be that of the boat's chef, has been recovered.
Well, divers are now combing the waters as search efforts continue around the wreck. So far, 15 people have been rescued, including the wife of Mike Lynch and a 1-year-old baby girl.
Well, earlier we spoke to the chairperson of the Maritime Search and Rescue Council, Matthew Shank.
There's numerous theories at the moment, and obviously there will be investigations carried out by the Marine Accident Investigation Branch from the UK, but also the Italian authorities. But it's important to look at the vessel type in itself. So the vessel is obviously a sailing vessel, which means it has quite a lot of masts and other devices on board the vessel, which are particularly high. As you said, the mast is either the second highest or the highest in the world. When there's wind and weather, this basically acts almost like a sail in itself. So if it catches the wind, then that can cause the vessel to heel over, to lean over, and affect the stability of the vessel. But again, it's important to note that as a sailing vessel, they'll be designed to deal with these forces act upon it. But it is important to know that windage area that's provided by the mast is affected when there are strong winds.
Matthew, can you tell us a little bit about your understanding of the conditions in the sea around Palermo in the days before the sinking? Because we're hearing about this water spout, aren't we? Is that something that you would see regularly in the seas in the Mediterranean?
No, I mean, a water spout is pretty rare. They do happen, and they do happen in that area. But again, these aren't weather events that would be predictable. They can be sort of expected in certain areas, but they are rare. Now, the weather forecast on the night was nothing that would have caused any concern to the master, to the captain. There were warnings for thunderstorms, etc., but the proof is sort of in the pudding. If you look at the anchorage, the vessel wasn't the only vessel in the anchorage, and the other vessels in the vicinity weathered quite fine throughout the weather event. We don't know whether it was a water spout or whether it was a squall that's come through, but in any case, looking at the CCTV from the area and the impact that's had on the vessel, it was a pretty significant weather event that impacted on them.
Matthew Shank reporting there for us on all of the details in this story which we've been poring over, and to be honest, just one of these events in and of themselves would have been newsworthy, but the story of Mike Lynch's life, the fact that he went on, well, he started out and became this huge tech tycoon, Britain's answer to Bill Gates. He advised the government on early stages of AI, sold his company for a huge amount of money, then found himself in a big legal battle, won in a sort of David and Goliath 12-year fight with the Americans against all the odds, totally vindicated, and then this freak accident happens.
Yeah, and his daughter being one of those missing, an 18-year-old daughter called Hannah, had just got into Oxford University, had literally just passed her A-levels. I mean, you can't make this story up. So they are missing alongside 4 other people. James Price joins us now. He's former Chief of Staff to Nadeem Zahawi. We're going to be talking about Sir Keir Starmer in Wales, but we have to get your reaction to this story because it's on the front of all of the newspapers this morning. It's the stuff of nightmares, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely right. And where do you even begin? As you say, the story, I mean, it's so film-worthy. And hopefully, that if it does ever get turned into a movie, it will have a happy ending and there will be some resolution to this, although I fear that maybe we shouldn't get our hopes up on it. I mean, the big crux of a lot of this was that having sold his company in 2011, I think it was, Autonomy, to HP, or Hewlett-Packard, known to most people as the sort of printer makers you may have in the corner of your home, this horrendous legal battle that all went down, and it did. You just talked about myself getting engaged to an American. It sort of rocked a special relationship to some extent. It is a sort of imbalance in extradition treaties that it says in the United Kingdom must extradite people to the US, but the US only may extradite people back again. And
well, we famously tried to get Anne Secoulis over, didn't we? And they were absolutely point-blank refused.
Exactly
and yet when we wanted to try and support Mike Lynch in this, it wasn't the case. We weren't able
Exactly right. And it's this kind of awful kind of corporate raider attempts that, he managed to outplay these guys, and then, the effect of big corporations on the US legal system. America's a great country, but we should be very grateful that we have the kind of legal system, perhaps, that we have here domestically.
Yeah, I read 97% of cases that are brought to court in these sorts of cases are lost by the defendant. So he was in that 3% that was...
And he said, doesn't he, in that one very rare interview that he did this summer with British press, he said the only reason that I was acquitted is because I am so wealthy.
Yeah, I've got friends who worked on this case, and it is just absolutely extraordinary. And the kind of David versus Goliath thing, and then he says, I'm going to spend the rest of my life and my fortune trying to fight against these kind of injustices, just as soon as I have a nice holiday, and this has happened.
Well, and on that ship, he invited his lawyers, his colleagues who'd supported him, and indeed his family for personal. He said that he couldn't wait not only to get back to his country, to get back to work because he was this huge brain, and to spend time with his family because he was a real family man. It's heartbreaking.
No, and he was
truly heartbreaking.
He was looking forward to this second life, wasn't he? And he wanted to get back to innovation. And it was this celebration, wasn't it, of his acquittal, of this second life. And look what's happened.
Well, let's not also forget that Stephen Chamberlain, his co-defendant in the whole case, died tragically just on Saturday gone. In Cambridgeshire. He was killed in a car accident.
No.
And instantly I start thinking, has something gone on here? Is there something more to this? But clearly this incident just off the coast of Palermo in Sicily, a total freak weather-related tragedy that you could never have even dreamt up.
Well, you can't create that sort of weather.
Let's hope that the government doesn't have the power to do these sorts of things. It's bad enough when the government has power to tax you and to regulate, but if it's got control over the weather, then we're all in trouble.
Yes, well, exactly.
Well, of course, any developments that we do get on that story we'll bring to you on GB News this morning. James, let's have a look at Sir Keir Starmer in Wales today. This is part of his efforts to make Britain a clean energy superpower. How's he going to do that?
Well, it's a very, very good question. Lots of people with this whole GB energy and not entirely sure how it's going to work. I suppose the problem that you've got, the fundamentals is that you can't get around reality. You can't get around the physics of energy creation. There are no rich countries that are not also energy creation superpowers or have got access to it. These are fundamentals. And you can talk about net zero all you want. It was very easy back in, 2019. It's one of the last things that Theresa May did was to sign this idea of being net zero by 2030 or 2050 and all these things. You can say that that's all fine when it's all down the road. When the rubber hits that road, however, it's very, very difficult. Now, what we should be doing is going hell for leather for nuclear, which is a wonderful carbon-neutral way that will make us energy efficient.
Slow, though.
It's slow, but there was this video of Nick Clegg back in 2011, 2012, saying there's no point in investing in this stuff because it won't be ready until 2022. And well, if we'd have done it then, we'd have had all this.
Can't just blame Nick Clegg, though.
It's tempting, isn't it? But you can see in France, the reason the French get so many things wrong, but because they get energy so right, they can afford to to get lots
That's
of other
nuclear,
things
isn't
wrong.
it?
And that's
what we're
nuclear.
talking
They've
about
got that.
there.
And it's great that, if Starmer wants to get this onshore wind going, I've not got a huge problem with that. But the kind of what happens, the old question is when the wind doesn't blow, when the sun doesn't shine. You need to have this kind of base load. And the other problem we've got, of course, is that the kinds of fanatics who are here about net zero and about this stuff, these sort of nutters who are gluing themselves to streets and the rest of it, they don't understand how the science or the economics of this works. Even by the kind of most optimistic projections of us getting to carbon neutral by 2050, you're still going to have gas in the mix, you're still going to have elements of oil in the mix. And the only way of stopping this is by massively destroying our whole economy, which will affect children's living standards, will affect hospitals, will affect all of our lives and make us much poorer. So we've got to be much smarter about how we do this and not have an ideologue like old Ed Miliband in charge of things as he is.
Interesting. Just whilst you're talking about the economy and the effects it has on all of us, the Prime Minister saying that he really wants to see more people working from home. We've been hearing a lot about this right to switch off. Is that going to help productivity? They're adamant that if people don't burn out and if people are able to have a better work-life balance, then overall the economy is better because we have, 9 million people or something crazy like that who are economically inactive at the moment because the workplace is not attractive to them. Could this entice them back and make it more tempting and therefore boost productivity? That's the argument, isn't it?
Right. It's an interesting argument and it's one that every business should be having because we've got this exciting new technology. We saw that it kind of mostly works through COVID and everybody watching this at home will have their own view as to, do I work well in the office on Mondays and Tuesdays, or whatever it is. It's not the government's job to be telling companies how to do this kind of
it's job
stuff.
dependent, surely. Like, you can't have builders, teachers, nurses, TV presenters working from home, can you? There will be certain industries that will always have to be office-based or, out in the workplace. So it's not a one-size-fits-all.
No, absolutely not. And the area that he is really in charge of, so the civil service, the Prime Minister is the Minister for the civil service. This is the area he should have it. And where I've got a lot of experience of trying to help my old bosses get people back into the workplace. Businesses can do whatever they want, but there's a responsibility inside the public sector for people to be training up the next generations of public servants. And you can't train people if you only know them through a Zoom conversation. And it's been such a problem inside Whitehall of getting civil servants back into the office where the best work happens. There are amazing civil servants, the guys in what they call the private office, who work for the ministers. They're in really early, they're there really late, they're amazing. But when you have the so-called policy experts, whatever, who are just dialing in from dodgy connections that still often drop, that's a terrible service to those ministers, and it doesn't work.
And James, just very briefly, can we touch upon the Tory leadership contest? Because it's difficult to know where we're at in this race, because we're looking at the front page of the Eye this morning, Generic for leader, apparently that's where the Tory backers that's where the Tory donors are backing. And then we've got the likes of Priti Patel, apparently her friendship with Nigel Farage is going to seal the deal for her. But then we've got this story saying that Tom Tugendhat is to be the next party leader because he's got the backing of 8 Scottish Tory MSPs. What's your assessment of where the race is at right now?
It's very exciting, isn't it? It's still all to play for. It's nice to see that this is a proper contest and that we're going at the moment with different kinds of backers and things like that. What I hope we can get into, and it does seem at least that they're doing this in a kind of very good, positive limelight. I think there was a hustings up in the northeast and half of the candidates had a photo of them all arm in arm so that we don't get into the kind of nastiness that we've seen in other kinds of leadership contests. I hope we get into the kind of fundamental principles that people believe in. So we don't have this kind of retail politics of, well, my big idea is we're going to do X policy that's going to help in whatever little small area it is. I want to know what all of these people fundamentally believe. What is the purpose of the state? What should the government do and shouldn't do? Who are we here to help and things like that? Those are the big questions that we should be asking before we worry about policies.
OK, thanks very much, James. Always a pleasure to talk to you. And congratulations again on your personal news about your engagement. We've been enjoying looking at the pictures of the ring, and I can report, boy, done good.
He did very good. Well done, James. Thank you so much. Thank you. Now, in the past few hours, the Democratic National Convention has kicked off in Chicago.
And the Vice President, Kamala Harris, made a surprise appearance and in her opening lines praised President Biden and thanked him for his leadership.
I want to kick us off by celebrating our incredible President, Joe Biden, who will be speaking later tonight. Joe, thank you for your historic leadership, for your lifetime of service to our nation, and for all you will continue to do. We are forever grateful to you.
Former Secretary of State and former Democratic presidential hopeful Hillary Clinton also took to the stage.
However, not without a little controversy, as Mrs Clinton had to talk over chants of lock him up as she mocked Donald Trump.
And finally, Joe Biden himself wiped away tears before calling Trump a loser and fully endorsing Harris's campaign.
Let me ask you, are you ready to vote for freedom? Are you ready to vote for democracy and for America? Let me ask you, are you ready to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz?
Well, earlier we got the thoughts of the foreign correspondent Sarah Firth on the convention.
It's real energy that we've seen come out of the opening of the Democratic National Convention. You've got everyone gathered there in Chicago, and we heard that very impassioned speech from Kamala Harris herself, talking about her leadership, thanking President Biden, of course, for his leadership, his historic service, and also laying out that fighting speak that we've come to expect from her since she stepped into this role as presidential hopeful. Though she hasn't yet accepted the party's nomination. It's thought that will happen at the end of the convention, probably on Thursday, when she will accept formally that nomination. But Isabel, you're absolutely right. Since we've seen President Biden move aside and Kamala Harris step up into the spotlight, start to campaign, start to give these rallies and these types of speeches, it is a slightly different Kamala Harris that Americans have seen. And we've seen that play out. There has been a bump in the polls in her favor. You listen to what the Republicans are saying. You've even got very well-known, well-respected Republicans, people like Lindsey Graham, coming out and admitting, yeah, this has been a wake-up call for the Republican Party, who, you know, in backing Trump, they had their powerful speaker. They had the man who can rally the troops. And like you said, President Biden was seen as being, you know, slightly asleep at the wheel, and he wasn't very well in the polls. Well, it's all been shaken up. And as you're seeing now playing out at the DNC in Chicago, this renewed energy and enthusiasm behind the Democratic Party, and that very much translating in the polls right now.
But there's still a long way to go, isn't there, for Kamala Harris? She's appealing to women, she's appealing to young people, she's appealing to black voters, perhaps where Joe Biden wasn't. But still, Sarah, those polls are still very tight, aren't they? What else can she do in the next few months to really edge ahead?
They're very, very tight. And look, the polls are difficult, especially in a situation like this, because there are some massive issues and massive barriers that Kamala Harris is going to have to overcome. One is the fact that you had this huge change up in strategy and leadership and what happened with President Biden. That is, when you go out and speak to voters, when you speak to Americans, even here in Washington, D.C., there is really a sense that they weren't told perhaps as much as they should have been about President Biden, about the situation. It was a real shock across the country, and we spoke about it at the time, Ellie, I remember, just the sort of shock that reverberated throughout the nation when President Biden had that appalling debate.
Sarah Firth speaking to us a little bit earlier on in the programme.
Right, with the time at 18 minutes past 7, let's take a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom.
The woman who died following a triple stabbing in Manchester has been named as 43-year-old Alberta Obnendim. 2 others are in a critical condition following the attack. A 22-year-old man, believed to be known to the victims, has been arrested on suspicion of murder.
The US has called on Hamas to agree to a proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza after it gained the backing of Israel. The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the latest push for a deal was probably the best and possibly the last opportunity, urging both sides towards agreement.
A new royal biography has claimed that the late Queen Elizabeth found former US President Donald Trump very rude. A Voyage Around the Queen, written by Craig Brown, alleges that the late Queen disliked President Trump's manner and questioned his arrangement with the former First Lady, Melania Trump.
See, now the Queen's dead, officially you can divulge secrets that you might have gleaned if you've spent time, although it's a bit of a faux pas, isn't it? Because it's supposed to remain private forever. But apparently one of the things the Queen really disliked was when she was talking to Trump, kept looking over her shoulder as if he was looking for someone.
That is really rude. I hate it when people do that.
When people do that. And why would you do that with Her Majesty the Queen?
She would be.
There is nobody better to talk to.
Yeah, she would be the most important person to speak
but
to.
I also find it funny that she had a little speculation about what their living arrangements were and how things worked with Melania Trump. The mind boggles as to what the response was of whoever she was speculating to.
I don't like it, though, because you know the Queen would hate the idea that all of this is public. She'd never speak badly about anybody publicly, and now it's all out there.
But have you seen the meme when they came over for that state visit and they arrived on the steps of Buckingham Palace and the Queen came to the steps to meet them and she was shaking hands with all of them and then she saw Melania's shoes and she literally pulled this face like that. Oh, really? I'll find it on the internet.
Yeah,
and see
find
if we
it.
can play
See if
for
you
you
can find
because
it.
she, you know, she didn't say much, but sometimes
her face said it all.
Says 1,000 words.
Yes, it certainly does. And you remember when they were in Windsor, and do you remember President Trump cut across her? Do you remember when they were inspecting the troops, and everyone at the time was like, oh, he wasn't good with royal protocol, was he?
Yes. Well, anyway, protocol dictates that it is time for the weather, and here's Aidan McGibbon with all the details.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there, and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Some sunshine around today, but also a number of heavy showers, along with gusty winds, making it feel unseasonably unpleasant. We will see some sun, though, first thing across parts of the Midlands into Wales, the south and southwest. There will also be a lot of cloud around, and there'll be increasingly heavy and frequent showers moving in, especially to the north and the west. And western Scotland prone to longer spells of rain, along with a strengthening wind, 50-mile-per-hour gusts near coasts and hills. So all in all, an unsettled and changeable day towards the northwest. Fewer showers in the southeast, and in the sunshine feeling pleasant enough. The same can't be said for western Scotland as the winds pick up and those showers gang together to form longer spells of wet weather across Argyll, West Highland, into parts of the central belt, for example, heading into the evening. Northern Ireland also prone to frequent and heavy downpours, especially across the north and the west. Showers moving through western England and Wales, but fewer downpours through the Midlands, the south and southeast. And a fine end to the day here, it has to be said, with fewer clouds compared with how we start things. Now, Tuesday night and into Wednesday brings further showers into the north and west, but those showers tend to fade away as the night progresses, and we'll see some clear spells developing. A fresh night to come, 11 or 12 Celsius for most, single figures in some sheltered rural parts, but actually some decent sunny spells in the south and east first thing Wednesday before it turns increasingly cloudy from the west, and that cloud will bring spells of rain by the afternoon into western Scotland and Northern Ireland, eventually that rain spilling into northwest England and Wales. It's going to turn heavier and more persistent through Wednesday night and Thursday, risk of localised flooding in western Scotland.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, how does £30,000 in tax-free cash sound to you?
Sounds very good.
We're not allowed to enter, though, but you are. Here's how.
We could be calling you with the news that you've won our latest Great British giveaway, an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash.
Hi, I'm John from sunny North Yorkshire, and I've just won £20,000 in the GB News Great British giveaway. It didn't cost much to enter, but of course if you're not in, you can't win. And here I am having won £20,000, and that's tax-free, so I'm rather pleased I did it.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Right,
yes,
coming
good
up.
luck.
Yeah, good luck. We're talking about working mums just after this. I feel like I should stay out of the debate because obviously I'm living it.
Well, you do it all.
I do it all.
Full-time job,
But you're very sympathetic, you see.
Yeah.
But then, you know, you had a working mum.
Yeah.
You'll be a working mum one day.
Hope so.
We've all got to stick together, us mums. But anyway, the debate this morning, are our colleagues of working mums supportive enough, aware enough of the responsibilities? Obviously working dads as well, but it doesn't always fall to them in the same way. We'll be debating it after this.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm.
you made my argument for me.
My guests and I tackle the issues that really matter, with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere. Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, the school summer holidays are coming to a close. Lots of mums jump for joy when they're over, which is sad, really, but because it's a huge pressure. And new research finds that 1 in 5 working mums are clocking up an additional 8 hours on shift at home every day, as well as doing their regular day jobs.
Well, that's equivalent to another full-time job, isn't it? Another 8 hours. Well, 80% of working mums wish their colleagues were more aware of those additional hours. And the soap star Natalie Cassidy knows this very well. She'll be joining us on Breakfast later this morning to talk to us about that. But in the meantime, we're debating whether being a mum should count as a second job. Should that be appreciated by our colleagues? Well, we're joined now by former Labour candidate and mum, Susie Stride, and IEA spokesperson, Reem Ibrahim. Really good to see you both this morning. Susie, let's start with you. And you will say that being a mum is the equivalent of a second full-time job.
Yeah, I mean, I think any mum would say that. Anyone that's got experience of working and also having a child. But, you know, it's a massive privilege to be a mother. It's a massive privilege to have children. But it's an incredible amount of work, you know, and I think most people, not just mums, most people would argue that you are you know, yeah, it's a privilege and you don't do it for this, but actually you are contributing to the economy because you're also producing the future people that are going to go into work and whatnot. So, but yeah, it's a huge amount of work, and I think I don't know why, but it is just not recognised. It's not understood. Only when I became a mother did I understand that. And so,
it's because it's women, Susie. If men were doing the lion's share of the childcare as well, everyone would know about it. But women don't shout about it. They put up and get on with it. But times are changing, aren't they, Reem? And I think, you know, there's nobody here suggesting that women need special favours, but they need to have certain understanding within the workplace. There's arguments, isn't there, for Pregnant Then Screwed, who's campaigning 100% for meritocracy, but they want to see things like flexible working so that women can work around childcare responsibilities, and they want to be able to make sure that women aren't squeezed out of the labour market because they simply can't juggle both things.
Absolutely. I mean, look, being a mother is one of the most incredible things that any woman can do. And I think it's wonderful that so many women are able to work and have children. I think it's wonderful. I think we should have the utmost respect for every single woman that is able to balance and juggle all of that. However, in the workplace, I think it is incredibly unfair if we begin to give preferential treatment to mothers or indeed to any parent. If I was to say that I'm going on an unnegotiable walk at 3 p.m. every single day because I need to go and do the school run, but if I myself, without any children, said I need to go on an unpreferential run at 3 p.m. every single day, I would rightfully be told, no, you need to be in meetings. I think we need to be having these conversations about how best employers can cater towards different people's needs. But actually, I think that a lot of people that don't have children in the workplace are saying, hold on a minute, if I then said I need to go on a walk every day at 3 p.m. and you can't tell me otherwise, or indeed that I need to disappear every afternoon for childcare responsibilities, actually it's incredibly unfair. And ultimately, having children is a choice, and it's a wonderful choice if you are able to do it. It's incredibly wonderful if you are able to do it. Many people nowadays can't afford to have children, they end up having pets anyway. But actually, if we're thinking about this from a wider perspective, we want to be encouraging parents to be working as well as having children and contributing to the economy. But it is incredibly unfair if we begin to give those particular people preferential treatment in the workplace. And I think that some of their childless colleagues will begin to resent them.
Of Reem's point there, that there does need to be understanding in the workplace, but that there shouldn't be any preferential treatment because ultimately it is your decision to become a mother.
I mean, if we don't believe in preferential treatment, then we basically say that a mum should go straight from the hospital with her child straight to work. And that doesn't work. I mean, I work in schools, and more recently, actually, I've just moved on from the charitable sector. But there's no way that you have a baby and you're going into school to teach with a baby. That's just not going to work. So we already have preferential treatment. And, you know, you can label it preferential treatment, or you can say, actually, we want a thriving workforce. We want to attract people into the workforce. We want mothers in the workforce. And actually, we have a declining workforce in our country. And, you know, it's really interesting because I was just thinking this morning, I don't know how we've got into this place again, how we don't honour mum, or maybe honour isn't the right word, but we don't, you know, appreciate, you know, what they bring. We say mothers and parents generally. But somehow we've got there. But, I'm a big believer in change. I'm a big believer in reform. I'm a big believer in things can be better than where we're at the moment. You only need to look at other countries. You only need to look at the Nordic countries, the Scandinavian countries, where you see that, you know, women have flexible working hours, where they have back to work schemes. And actually what you have, if you attract mums back into the workforce, and actually everyone benefits from that. You know, and
but does everyone get the flexible working arrangements? But this is the point, right? I mean, we can't sit here and say that it's great that all of these mothers end up getting preferential treatment and flexible working hours. But does everybody get that? I think it's incredibly unfair.
So would you argue against maternity leave then, when women have just given birth? Because as the contributor was making there, you know, that's preferential treatment, isn't it? The men aren't getting that time straight after they've had the baby.
No, that's slightly different. And actually, this is the point.
Is it different, though? Why is it different? They've chosen to have a child. How dare they not be coming to work?
women are not required to, after having a child, immediately go back to work because we have maternity leave. And I think of course, there are elements of preferential treatment. You get preferential treatment if you go for surgery and you end up having to take some time off work. That's not the point. The point is that if we are to say that as a blanket approach, immediately and permanently, as a mother or as a parent, you get preferential treatment in the workplace permanently, I think that is incredibly unfair. Now, again, I think it's completely up to employers what they decide to do in the workplace. However, if you're arguing for reforms, legal reforms, about the fact that actually we should be allowing for further flexible arrangements for mothers, I think that is incredibly unfair and would distort the labour market. There needs to be an element of fairness, and ultimately, I think maternity leave and paternity leave are both brilliant things. Of course you cannot be expected to immediately go back to work after having a child. That's absurd. But we're talking about permanent change, permanent restrictions, or permanent legal laws that actually affect the labour market. I think that's unfair, and I actually think that many people that don't have children, that can't afford to have children, will begin to resent those particular people that get those special privileges.
I'm afraid we're out of time, ladies. Thank you very much, both of you, Susie and Reem.
Can I just come in on one?
Go on, very quick word, because we've got to move on to the sport.
We have a declining birth rate in this country, and that is bad for, the economy. We want to attract women in, and most economists would say we need to do this. So, I'd strongly say we want working environments that help women and mums to flourish.
Yeah, good point. Susie Stride and Reem Ibrahim, thank you very much
ladies.
indeed. Let us know what you think. gbnews.com/yoursay.
Right, coming up, Paul Coit is here. He has all the sport. What have you got for us?
Leicester 1, Tottenham Hotspur.
1.
No, 1. Don't you do not nil. No, it was 1-1.
Draw.
It was a draw. It was 1-1.
Which is as good as a loss for you.
Well, yeah, it did feel a bit like a loss. We'll talk more about that in a second. And also the Australian who is defecting to Team GB.
For love.
In the name of love.
You think it's for love? You think it's for love? Well, we'll see.
We'll drill into that. Good stuff. Thanks, Paul. See you in a moment.
The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK this Tuesday morning. In Kent, the coastbound M20 speed restriction due to Operation Brock. Junction 8 for Leeds Castle and the Maidstone services to Junction 9 at Ashford. The London-bound M26 in Kent, we've got one lane closed due to an accident from Junction 2A for London Road to Junction 5 for the M25. And in Hampshire, the westbound M27, one lane is closed due to a broken down vehicle, Junction 10 at Wickham to Junction 9 this morning. In Buckinghamshire, the London-bound M40, long delays and two lanes closed due to an accident. That's going to affect you just before Junction 4 for the High Wycombe Handy Cross roundabout. Queues back to Junction 5 at Stokenchurch. And in Merseyside, the M57 northbound, the entry slip road is closed due to emergency resurfacing repairs around Junction 5 for the East Lancs Road at Knowsley. That's obviously going to affect you there still this morning, that slip road closure. You're up to date.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive, incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
A lot of talk about engagements this morning, because one of our guests this morning had just got engaged, and then we've been talking about love in relation to sport. We're getting Paul Coit to tell us how he proposed to his wife in Barbados. It was a lovely story.
Do you want to wipe the tear away now?
It was just lovely. It was just lovely. Anyway, we're not going to dwell on that because we want the sports update.
Leicester won, Spurs won. Spurs turned up with Dominic Solanke, new striker. How good is this guy going to be? But he did not score, whereas Jamie Vardy, who's 37 years old, did score for Leicester, although Spurs did go one up. They were all over Leicester, absolutely all over them. And then when Leicester scored, it was the momentum thing. It turned, momentum went with Leicester. So it ended up 1-1 in the end.
It could have been worse, Coit. It
could have been worse.
We've got to be positive.
We have to be positive. We have to be positive, but it probably should have been a Spurs win, but there you go. But newly promoted Leicester. Ivan Toney, who didn't play for Brentford on Saturday, looks like he's going to be going to Saudi Arabia, which kind of disappoints me. Although, he plays for Brentford and he's looking for a move, and it's obviously going to be for the money. You can't argue with someone that's going there to earn more money, but where does that stand with England, and does it stand with football? You think you want to be playing Premier League football, but it's not done and dusted. But it looks like Al Ahly is where he's going to be going to Saudi Arabia.
And tell us about a world record attempt.
I love a world record. I love a world record. How about this one? The fastest... I feel like Roy Castle. The fastest speed whilst being dragged behind a moving motorbike.
Oh.
It worries me when you have records like this, because, quite frankly, they're dangerous. They've got to be dangerous.
Sound very safe.
The current record is 156.3 miles an hour. Someone actually being... Look, have a look at this. This is Johnny Davis. Now, Johnny, look, he's going to be dragged. There he is on the motorbike, and then he actually gets dragged... Look at this. He's being dragged behind the motorbike. So he's driving the motorbike, or riding the motorbike, but he's actually standing behind the motorbike, being dragged along... 159.52 miles an hour. Can you imagine what it does to the soles of your shoes? Look at that.
Oh, it's like water skiing.
Yeah, it's exactly what it is.
Without skis.
Yes, and without water. And on a motorbike.
How do you get the movement on your through your feet? How does it work? You just
like little wheels or something.
What do you mean movement on
You've got little wheels on it? Or
no, you just...
oil or...
I think it just skids. But then again, that's
I'd
a good
go
point,
face
because
first.
there'd be smoke
like
coming
rubber,
off your shoes.
Yeah.
Rubbery...
Yeah, maybe it's got Blakey's. You probably don't remember Blakey's. Used to be on the corner.
You need to get them on as a guest.
Heelys.
So can understand.
Heelys, that's it. Wheelie Heely things. They're spinning like this, 156 miles an hour. It's a crazy record, but I just thought I'd bring it to you.
Well, I enjoyed that.
Richard Whitehead will be with us in an hour.
OK, fantastic.
Paralympic
I'm excited.
legend, two-time gold medalist, one-time silver medalist over 3 Paralympics. Starts in 8 days. So
oh my goodness, yes. It's going to get us excited for the Paralympics.
Absolutely.
Not too far off. OK, thanks very much, Coity. See you again soon.
Do stay with us. We'll be going through the papers next with Alex Armstrong and Nikki Hodgson as 2.5 million Brits admit to throwing a small gadget away each year. I've done that very recently, actually. What have you thrown away that you shouldn't have? Let us know. gbnews.com/you'll say.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
Should footballers just stop taking the knee? It's time for our head-to-head.
I don't want to see people on their knees. I want to see the FA or UEFA or all of those FIFA all leading from the top. And that would be that if half of the players, and it's practically half of them, are of colour, why is that not even remotely replicated at the top? So to me, I just see it as an empty gesture. What is the point of it? It's been going on for years and still not much has happened. And the bottom line is this: these clubs are rich. Football is rich. Everything. If they really wanted to prosecute racists on the terraces, they really could. and they haven't, and they've had years to do it. So why would getting down on one knee now change it? It's not changing anything. It needs to start from the top, but it hasn't.
I do wonder, Jason, whether or not it has much of an impact. I mean, at the start of games or in the highlight shows, etc., match of the day, it does seem like, right, OK, so we'll take the knee and the commentator will go out of his way or her way to tell us what a wonderful thing this is. And, suspiciously at times I do wonder whether or not the fan sound goes down, because I've been at a few football games where it's not been that well received, but you don't tend to see that in the highlight shows. And then there might be a round of applause for something else, and there might be something else going on, and eventually we get a bit of football, Do the fans actually like this?
I don't know. You have to ask them, to be honest. I think there are many different people why they boo. That people do think it's virtual signalling, that it's done for show. But I think that it can only be a good thing in my mind that we are discussing this, and we all realise I think in 100 years' time, this conversation could still be going on. There still needs to be work done. There still needs to make sure that the Argentinian national side to be singing racist songs about black African-American footballers that now play for the French national side are getting racially abused. That tells me only one thing, that the message is still not getting across.
GB News.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
We're taking a look at what is making the news this morning with the political commentator Alex Armstrong and the author and broadcaster Nikki Hodgson. And we'll have a proper look through this hour because we don't have any rude interruptions from the government. But Alex, let's start with you. This is actually the only paper pretty much that isn't leading on this shocking super yacht incident, which we'll come on to in a moment, I think. But this is a sort of bit of a break with protocol. But now that Her Majesty, the late Queen, is dead, we hear the odd anecdote now, don't we, about things she said in private conversations. So what have we learnt that she allegedly thought?
Yes, so this is really interesting, and I do love these stories because it gives us an insight into what goes on. They're a bit naughty, a little bit of
it feels like we shouldn't know it.
Well, that's the thing, right? That's probably why it's a headline, right? Because we probably shouldn't. It's a royal world exclusive. So this is the Queen saying that she thought Trump was very rude on his state visit. I can't remember how many years ago it was now. It was a while ago. But this is coming from a book from a new book that's coming out on lots of different elements of the late Queen and her state visits. But this is very much in conflict to what Trump says. And he went, after her visit, I thought the Queen had a fabulous time. I thought she had the best time ever. So really interesting to see the Queen's take on this. I mean, look, we always have to be careful to say that this is, gospel, because we get lots of silly rumours coming out about the royals and so many different books here and there. And
Craig Brown is a known satirist. His book on Princess Margaret, oh my goodness, it is laugh out loud funny. It is absolutely incredible. She comes across as just absolutely mad.
Princess Margaret.
Yeah.
She was an absolute
absolutely. Yeah. But that Mom Darling book is incredible. But it is, there's you've got to take it with a little pinch of salt.
Yeah. So. I mean, I don't know whether people would perhaps disagree with this statement, but supposedly she was upset he would look over her shoulder to see if there's someone felt like she thought that he thought there might be someone more interesting in the room.
Who did he think was going to be more interesting than Queen Elizabeth?
But that's kind of why I wonder whether it's true.
Maybe an attractive young woman.
It probably was.
He also goes on to say that the Queen said something about him and Melania having an arrangement. They used to have an arrangement in order for them to be together.
You cannot imagine her saying, but she was a very wise person, so I'm sure she understood how humans work.
Oh yeah, so fascinating stuff. It's a good read. I wish I could tell you more, but it's a good read. Pick up the copy of the Mail and have a look for yourselves.
Do you know what? It is nice to think of her as a human, just like us, who gossips and judges.
Yeah.
You think she was better than all of us and just wouldn't make judgments on other people, but it seems she
not
did.
in public, basically.
Just not publicly, yeah.
Yeah,
she did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nikki, let's look at the front of the eye, shall we? Crime suspects left on the streets under one-in, one-out prison crowding plan.
Oh, gosh. Well,
concerning, isn't it?
It is deeply concerning. We know that prisons are desperately overcrowded. It's partly, well, it's mainly to do with how the Conservatives ran prisons and who they decided to put away. But we have not invested in our prison system properly for years. We've closed 20 private prisons were closed under the Tories. And now what Labour is faced with doing is they're going to hold people that are about to go into prison in police cells for a number of weeks. And the other more worrying aspect is that people that should be remanded in custody will be let out on bail. Now, we know that in 3 years, 21 women were killed by male partners who were on bail. It's a common phenomenon that is when they take their chance to commit a horrific further crime. And it's just extremely... How can the Labour government be going on about, misogyny as a kind of terrorism and at the same time leaving
Nikki,
people vulnerable?
100% clear, nobody who's been convicted for domestic abuse crimes or any kind of violent crimes will be allowed out.
This says domestic violence
those
offenders.
people who have been charged for under 2 years, Will.
Yes.
And that's what people aren't seeing the small print on that one. So, yes, anyone who's had a big sentence won't, but smaller
domestic
sentences
violence offenders will
under
be.
2 years, and they will be in that category.
Yeah.
And I think this is the concerning thing, is that, you may disagree with me, but I think there's some people who have been locked up who have not, especially in the last few weeks, there's people who have said things on social media who aren't a danger to society, who are going to prison now, and have never had any prior criminal records. And we might be letting out the wrong people to let in people who are actually perhaps less harmful, who might have just needed a very strong telling off and a very strong warning. And this is my worry, is that this government is going to get that entirely wrong, and we really, really have to be careful, because, we just need to build some prisons. If we've got a prison overcrowding problem, we need to look at the cause of why that is, and then build some more prisons.
But that's not going to happen overnight.
No,
of course, the argument is that prison doesn't work anyway.
Well,
prison doesn't rehabilitate people anyway. So we need to think of something radical, a new solution for how we deal with people that commit terrible crimes.
We should never be in a position, though, where we've only got 700 spaces
we should not.
Criminals in this country.
Because basically it's the best time to commit a crime right now, if that's how you think about things. So
police cells will be full very, very quickly as well.
Alex, let's talk about this, because anecdotally, this happened to me the other day. I was staying in the Cotswolds at an Airbnb, and I walked down the drive, and there were 10 bins lined up. And I thought, my gosh, how many bins have you got there? Now, how do you even decipher what goes in what? And this is the thing, isn't it? Some households, especially in the Cotswolds and other parts of the country, are forced to use 10 recycling bins.
It's absolutely
too many.
Bonkers. In fact, the Taxpayers Alliance have done this research, and they've quoted it, and I think this is a perfect quote: mind-bogglingly complex system of waste separation. You have to separate your waste into 10 bins. That includes batteries, old equipment, and you can make an argument this is the right way to do it, but you're just not going to get normal people doing this.
No. I completely disagree with you. It is very easy to have 10 bins of different colours with stickers on. Stickers that show you exactly what to put in what bin. It is a habit that we must start to do. Climate change is real. Our waste, 222.2 million tonnes of waste the UK created in a year.
I don't disagree with you on the waste thing.
We have to get better.
But I think the solution should be on the end bit when the rubbish is delivered. There's got to be a technological way we
we've
can
all
solve
got to take personal responsibility for what we do with our waste. And younger generations than us can get to grips with it.
I just think you're being wishful thinking, Nikki. It's wishful
it's time.
thinking.
We've got to do it.
You're never going to get people doing that. You're just going to get them charged. They're going to be those...
The Cotswolds is so green anyway. They're obsessed with being green.
Don't get me wrong.
No, but I don't mean like that. I mean green thinking. They care deeply about the environment.
Well, it is a Lib Dem council, so I'm not surprised. But I do think, I just don't think you're going to get average Joe doing this anywhere else in the country.
And it annoys me. I want 10 bins. Where's 10 bins in London?
Have you got space for 10 bins?
If they were smaller than the 3 terrible wheelie bins that I've got at the front anyway, one of which I never use because it's for garden waste.
Do you think you and your husband have to fight over who's taking the 10 bins out this week?
You don't have to take them out. They're there, and the collectors just come and heave them over. I don't have to do anything.
No, it's madness. Total madness. Absolutely.
Well, you can live in landfill and rot.
You can be sick of the dump. I'm going to live on a clean island.
I went to Mumbai and I saw the state of the ocean.
Listen.
All the plastics.
I don't want to sound like I'm endorsing all of that stuff. I just think there's got to be a better solution than putting it on average Joe who just just hasn't got the time to do it and doesn't really care enough. There's got to be a solution on the waste processing.
Average Joe needs to change their
I completely agree. It is up to personal responsibility, Alex, which you often talk about in other...
No, listen, I'm all about it, but I just think that
Not when it comes to
we've got to be realistic if we really want to tackle the problem. This is not going to solve the problem.
Well, let us know what you think at home. We say goodbye to Nikki and Alex, and good morning to Aidan McGibbon.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Some sunshine around today, but also a number of heavy showers, along with gusty winds, making it feel unseasonably unpleasant. We will see some sun, though, first thing across parts of the Midlands into Wales, the south and southwest. There will also be a lot of cloud around, and there'll be increasingly heavy and frequent showers moving in, especially to the north and the west. And western Scotland prone to longer spells of rain, along with a strengthening wind, 50-mile-per-hour gusts near coasts and hills. So all in all, an unsettled and changeable day towards the northwest. Fewer showers in the southeast, and in the sunshine feeling pleasant enough. The same can't be said for western Scotland as the winds pick up and those showers gang together to form longer spells of wet weather across Argyll, West Highland, into parts of the central belt, for example, heading into the evening. Northern Ireland also prone to frequent and heavy downpours, especially across the north and the west. Showers moving through western England and Wales, but fewer downpours through the Midlands, the south and southeast. And a fine end to the day here, it has to be said, with fewer clouds compared with how we start things. Now, Tuesday night and into Wednesday brings further showers into the north and west, but those showers tend to fade away as the night progresses, and we'll see some clear spells developing. A fresh night to come, 11 or 12 Celsius for most, single figures in some sheltered rural parts, but actually some decent sunny spells in the south and east first thing Wednesday before it turns increasingly cloudy from the west, and that cloud will bring spells of rain by the afternoon into western Scotland and Northern Ireland, eventually that rain spilling into northwest England and Wales. It's going to turn heavier and more persistent through Wednesday night and Thursday, risk of localised flooding in western Scotland.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK for a Tuesday morning. In Kent, at the coastbound M20, the speed restriction for Operation Brock remains in place. Junction 8 for Leeds Castle and the Maidstone services to Junction 9 at Ashford. In Hampshire, the westbound M27, all lanes are now open after the broken down vehicle from Junction 10 at Wickham to Junction 9 for the A27. In Gloucestershire, the westbound M4, one lane is closed at the minute due to an accident at Junction 22 for the M49. And in Buckinghamshire, the London-bound M40 delays there because of an earlier accident. Junction 4 just before there for the High Wycombe Handy Cross roundabout. Queues are back to Junction 5 at Stokenchurch this morning. And also in Merseyside, the northbound M57, the entry slip road closed due to emergency resurfacing repairs at Junction 5 for the East Lancs Road this morning. That's going to affect you there, of course, as the morning goes on. You're up to date.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
We could be calling you with the news that you've won our latest Great British giveaway, an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash.
Hi, I'm John from sunny North Yorkshire, and I've just won £20,000 in the GB News Great British giveaway. It didn't cost much to enter, but of course if you're not in, you can't win. And here I am having won £20,000, and that's tax-free, so I'm rather pleased I did it.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. A super yacht celebration turns tragic.
Tech tycoon Mike Lynch still missing and feared dead off the coast of Sicily.
Well, along with his 18-year-old daughter Hannah and 5 other passengers, all of whom were there to mark Lynch's acquittal in a 12-year fraud trial.
US President Joe Biden wipes tears away as he hands the baton on to Kamala Harris at the Democratic National Convention.
Are you ready to vote for freedom? Are you ready to vote for democracy and for America? Let me ask you, are you ready to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz?
Prime Minister is visiting Wales and launching his plan to make Britain a green energy superpower. Earlier on, the Welsh Secretary Joe Stevens told us more about the ambition.
Today's visit is about showing how 2 Labour governments, one in Wales, one in Westminster, can work together to deliver that energy security, to bring down bills and to create new jobs through green energy.
80% of mothers say their colleagues don't appreciate their role as a mum. Soap star Natalie Cassidy is joining Breakfast shortly to tell us more.
And in the sport this morning, Leicester draw with Spurs and a tale of 2 strikers. Spurs' new one who didn't score and Leicester's really old one who did. Looks like Ivan Toney's off to Saudi and the Paris Paralympics is just 8 days away and one of our greatest medalists joins us soon.
For most of us, a blustery day with frequent showers around, but also some sunshine. How much sunshine and how many showers you get will depend entirely on where you are. I'll have the full details in the forecast coming up soon.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Isabel Webster.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast. The British tech tycoon Mike Lynch and his daughter are among 6 tourists missing after the luxury yacht sank in a tornado off the coast of Sicily yesterday.
I'm just getting an update on this story, actually, and we're being told that British inspectors have now been deployed to the scene just off the harbour in Palermo in Sicily because, of course, of the heavy British involvement in all of this. The ship was also British registered. The 56-metre Bayesian had 22 people on board. 15, luckily, were safely rescued, including a 1-year-old baby girl. A body, though, believed to be that of the vessel's cook, has been recovered.
Well, divers are resuming their search this morning, as we've been hearing, as firefighters struggled yesterday to access the wreck.
Well, we're joined now in the studio by the senior meteorologist at British Weather Services, Jim Dale. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, ladies.
This certainly seems to be a freak weather incident that happened. These water spouts, or tornadoes, if you want to call it that, do occur in the Mediterranean from time to time.
Yes, they do.
Particularly around the Aegean, but later in the season, normally, is my understanding. So what's happened here? What on earth's happened here off the coast of Sicily?
So you're right to mention that these things do happen. So this is not something that has never happened before. It does happen. You're right to mention it's early in the season, and there's a reason behind that, potentially anyway, and that is the Mediterranean Sea a few days ago reached its medium high level, record level, 28.15 degrees C. It's like getting into a bath. That results in the energy that you need for these things to be catastrophic. In other words, for events such as, for example, just a little bit further north the day before in Vienna, the severe flooding there as well. This is all about energy. It's all about energy from the ocean. So if you put a pan of water, a pan of milk on a stove, and you turn the heat up, and then you turn it up a bit more, that releases the energy into the liquid. Exactly.
Humidity, which causes.
And then what you need is you need another catalyst, which would be low pressure area. So instability, unstable airstream. That's exactly what was in place at this time. I've got to say there is an element of luck, and in this case, bad luck for this particular yacht. You're in the wrong place at the wrong time. It could have gone left, it could have gone right, but actually probably like a train went straight through them, and there's your tragedy in a.
Jim, was this in any way predictable? Should the crew have been out on the water in these sorts of conditions, or do they strike?
Such a good question. You know what? There'd been no meteorologist on that ship without a question. As an XRN meteorologist travelling the seas and knowing that from time to time you come up against these sort of things. What I would say is that there should have been a little bit of, let's just say, thought pattern to say that we were in an unstable atmosphere. There was potentially thunderstorms, lightning, this type of thing. So ships in harbour. Remember, this is still at sea. Harbour is in sea, not in the port itself. So you're at sea. So you are at the mercy of the elements, very much so. And when it comes to this sort of situation, we are very small. Make it absolutely clear whether we're talking climate change, or weather. And in fact, it doesn't matter how wealthy you are, as we've just seen the Times headline this morning, millionaires in yacht tragedy. That matters not. It really matters not. You can't eat money, and therefore, when it comes to it, Mother Nature is far, far stronger. So I think in this case, it is extremely unlucky, but it would have been like a train going through this particular thing. One thing I will say, though, we talk about these people escaping, surviving. That's how can I put this? There would have been, before this particular, before he actually got struck, there would have been noise. That water spout, as it was, would have made noise in the sea, and they would have heard the rushing, they would have heard the wind getting up, etc. So it probably roused people out of bed.
Yeah, there were reports that people were awake, were worrying about things smashing.
Yeah, exactly.
We're hearing water being...
And isn't that lucky? Because without that, a direct hit, without any noise, without knowing about it, probably would have sank, not just the ship, but everybody on it, and there'd have been no survivors.
And the proximity to civilization, I suppose, rather than being out at a remote island somewhere, meant that the rescue could be very swift. And the fact that there was a mother trying to tread water with a baby that couldn't swim, well, you can't do that for a long period of time, but she was able to safely escape because it was a quick rescue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, these sort of cases, I've got to say to you, they're not, they're not everyday occurrences, make that absolutely clear. But what is going on a wider scale, on a global scale, if it's not this sort of tragic incident, it's other incidents that are going on, such as the flooding I mentioned in Vienna, such as what's happening left, right, and center. I know we don't always have our eyes on it. This is the thing. I know, for example, today there are 10 storm warnings for 10 regions that have got storm warnings in Italy. So when you talk about was there a warning, well, probably there was. But what do you do about that? Do you pull in? Do you pull out? These things do happen out of the blue, literally out of the blue. And as I say, sometimes you can be unlucky. But we've always got to be aware in this changing environment that we're now in. Climate change is making things more and more obvious in terms of what's going on in tragedies that can occur. So we just have to have our eyes and have our focus and do the right things.
OK, Jim Dale, good to see you. Thank you.
And you, thank you.
Well, we're joined now by GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White. Good to see you this morning, Mark. And it does seem virtually unprecedented, doesn't it, that a vessel of this size and this strength can go down in these circumstances?
Well, clearly, if the winds are strong enough, it can be blown over, especially if that vessel is not facing into the wind, which is what we know the captain of a neighbouring vessel, in seeing the approaching squall, was able to do. He started his engine and manoeuvred his vessel into the winds to ride out the storm. And this vessel, with the second tallest mast in the world, there's a built-in degree of instability, if you like. It acts almost as a second sail that can catch the wind even if the sail is not up, and that, if the wind is strong enough, can push the vessel over, which may well have been what we witnessed in the early hours of yesterday morning. Now, I can tell you that the search of the area has resumed this morning, with divers again trying to gain access to the yacht itself. They were unable to do so yesterday because of furniture and other debris that was blocking the main sort of section, cabin area inside the yacht. So the divers just weren't able to access that, even though we're told that they were able to see through the portholes, disturbingly, the sight of bodies within the yacht itself. Now, of course, there is always a chance, a rare chance, but a chance of air pockets within a vessel of this size that it's possible a survivor or two might have got into. That will be uppermost in the rescue team's thinking, because it's still classed as a search and rescue operation and not yet a recovery operation. In terms of those on board, we now know, of course, that Mike Lynch, the tech entrepreneur, and his daughter Hannah were on board missing, now sadly presumed dead. But also it seems that Mike Lynch, after that huge court case on fraud charges that he won in the US, had invited some senior lawyers who were part of his defence team on
the sound whilst we just quickly flash to live pictures from Palermo, where we've just been reporting in the last few moments that there is now British involvement in that search and recovery process, going 50 metres below the surface of the water to try and access the Bayesian vessel. Mark, I think you're back now. I just wanted to reflect really on what a remarkable yet clearly tragic life Mike Lynch has had. I mean, there's been some commentary that, you know, people drown, migrants drown in the Mediterranean or wherever it might be. Are we just talking about this because this guy was, frankly, you know, a very wealthy individual? But actually, his life is remarkable, not only in the successes, but also the trials and tribulations of his life, and coming to this sort of climax to celebrate his recent vindication in a trial just a few weeks ago.
Yes, I mean, he was a tech entrepreneur worth more than £970 million. That aside, he, through his company, Autonomy Corporation, was able to bring about some significant advances within technology in this country, so much so that it caught the attentions of Hewlett-Packard, who took over and bought out his company in 2011. And of course that then sparked as far as he was concerned, the terrible ordeal that he and his family suffered, years of fighting against claims that they had overpriced what this company was worth. And that went all the way to the federal court. And in the federal court in the US, very few people that actually decide to fight a case ever win. You had a 97% chance of winning, but decided to fight that case along with his legal team in the US. And it was only in June, just over 2 months ago, that he won that case. And this trip out on that super yacht was a way of celebrating for him and his family, and also for the legal team that had supported him. So a very tragic end. And another very bizarre element to this story is the news that the co-defendant in all those years fighting this case in the fraud, Stephen Chamberlain, has died as well. He died in a completely separate, unrelated incident in Cambridge, in Cambridgeshire, where he was knocked over by a vehicle at the weekend and has died of his injuries. Now, of course, that news will only get the conspiracy theories raging as to what was happening here. But I think it was very clear, in terms of Italy at least, that the weather was the main contributor to that tragedy. Everybody saw the massive squall that came in, that was caught on CCTV, that eyewitnesses experienced as well.
Can't create that kind of freak weather. Mark White, thank you very much.
The Financial Times reporting this morning that Jonathan Bloomer, who was the British chairman of Morgan Stanley, and his wife Anne are also missing. They're not getting as much coverage for obvious reasons as Mike Lynch and his daughter, but obviously a bigwig in his own right, Jonathan Bloomer. And, yeah, obviously at the moment there isn't much hope of finding them alive. No. So a very British tragedy in the Mediterranean Sea.
Including the Clifford Chance lawyer as well, Chris Mavillo. He's also British, also missing, and he was a big part of this legal case for Mike Lynch in the US.
Terrible.
So just awful. Any developments we have, of course, we'll bring them to you here on GB News.
It's 8:14. Time to take a look at some of the other stories coming into the newsroom this morning.
The woman who died following a triple stabbing in Manchester has been named as 43-year-old Alberta Obenem. 2 others are in a critical condition following the attack. A 22-year-old man, believed to be known to the victims, has been arrested on suspicion of murder.
The US has called on Hamas to agree to a proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza after it gained the backing of Israel. The US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, said the latest push for a deal was probably the best and possibly the last opportunity, urging both sides towards agreement.
A new royal biography has claimed the late Queen Elizabeth found former US President Donald Trump very rude. A Voyage Around the Queen, written by Craig Brown, alleges that the Queen disliked Trump's manner and questioned his arrangement with the former First Lady, Melania Trump.
I was talking earlier about the Queen's reaction to Melania's footwear and I was muddled. It was actually the Turkish First Lady when she did a state visit to Buckingham Palace, and I've rewatched the clip and I've just been showing Ellie, but I do urge you to do the same.
Great clip.
To check it out, because Her Majesty looks at what are only to be described as very, 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 very high skyscraper heels covered in diamantes, and Her Majesty in her very sensible black court shoes doing a sort of...
She kind of steps back, doesn't she, in horror? Like,
she looks horrified. Oh, and then there's a slow-mo. So anyway, check it out if you get the chance, because the Queen, although she didn't say things in public, clearly had thoughts of her own.
And she's human just like us.
Yeah.
She couldn't disguise it. I mean, these heels are pretty scandalous.
They're amazing. They're amazing. But how she walks in those... But...
I know. It's a mystery. Anyway, in the last few hours, the Democratic National Convention has kicked off in Chicago.
Well, Vice President Kamala Harris made a surprise appearance and in her opening lines praised President Biden and thanked him for his leadership.
I want to kick us off by celebrating our incredible President Joe Biden, who will be speaking later tonight. Joe, thank you for your historic leadership, for your lifetime of service to our nation, and for all you will continue to do. We are forever grateful to you.
Well, the former Secretary of State and the former Democratic presidential hopeful Hillary Clinton also took to the stage.
However, not without a little controversy of her own. Mrs. Clinton had to talk over chants of lock him up as she mocked Donald Trump.
And finally, Joe Biden himself wiped away tears before calling Trump a loser and fully endorsing Harris's campaign.
Let me ask you, are you ready to vote for freedom? Are you ready to vote for democracy and for America? Let me ask you, are you ready to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz?
Well, let's get the thoughts now of GB News US correspondent Stephen Edgington, who we caught up with a little bit earlier on.
On the first day of the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, President Joe Biden delivered a keynote speech endorsing Kamala Harris and taking many swipes at Donald Trump. It was an angry speech. It was a bitter speech in tone, very emotional from Joe Biden. He made a series of claims which Republicans vehemently dispute, including claiming that Donald Trump said that there were fine people on both sides of a white nationalist rally in Charlottesville in 2018, when in reality, Donald Trump said that he was explicitly not endorsing white nationalists and neo-Nazis in that comment. Biden also talked about Gaza and Israel. He said that protesters outside of the Democratic Convention, pro-Gaza, pro-Palestinian protesters, had a point about too many innocent people dying on both sides of the conflict, and he made a call for peace. This wasn't Joe Biden of his debate with Donald Trump. He didn't make too many gaffes. He was speaking off a teleprompter. He did make one minor gaffe discussing illegal migration when he implied that he encouraged illegal migration with his vice president, Kamala Harris. And the Democrats seemed to put him in a very strange position. They made him speak after 11 p.m. here on the Eastern Coast, the time at the Eastern Coast. And this was a dead spot for Joe Biden. Many Americans would have been sleeping whilst he was making his speech. We also saw speeches from other major Democratic figures, including Hillary Clinton, a surprise small appearance from Kamala Harris herself, and from a very left-wing Congresswoman, AOC, from New York City. So that's pretty much the first day of the DNC summarized.
Stephen Edgington reporting for us this morning.
Now let's have a look at the weather with Aidan McGivern.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Some sunshine around today, but also a number of heavy showers, along with gusty winds, making it feel unseasonably unpleasant. We will see some sun, though, first thing across parts of the Midlands into Wales, the south and southwest. There will also be a lot of cloud around, and there'll be increasingly heavy and frequent showers moving in, especially to the north and the west. And western Scotland prone to longer spells of rain, along with a strengthening wind, 50-mile-per-hour gusts near coasts and hills. So all in all, an unsettled and changeable day towards the northwest. Fewer showers in the southeast, and in the sunshine feeling pleasant enough. The same can't be said for western Scotland as the winds pick up and those showers gang together to form longer spells of wet weather across Argyll, West Highland, into parts of the central belt, for example, heading into the evening. Northern Ireland also prone to frequent and heavy downpours, especially across the north and the west. Showers moving through western England and Wales, but fewer downpours through the Midlands, the south and southeast. And a fine end to the day here, it has to be said, with fewer clouds compared with how we start things. Now, Tuesday night and into Wednesday brings further showers into the north and west, but those showers tend to fade away as the night progresses, and we'll see some clear spells developing. A fresh night to come, 11 or 12 Celsius for most, single figures in some sheltered rural parts, but actually some decent sunny spells in the south and east first thing Wednesday before it turns increasingly cloudy from the west, and that cloud will bring spells of rain by the afternoon into western Scotland and Northern Ireland, eventually that rain spilling into northwest England and Wales. It's going to turn heavier and more persistent through Wednesday night and Thursday, risk of localised flooding in western Scotland.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Now, how do you like the sound of £30,000 in tax-free cash?
Yes, please.
Yes, well, it's our biggest Great British giveaway so far. We can't win it, though, sorry.
That's annoying.
But you can. Here's how.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours, but time is ticking. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed.
Still to come, find out why Sir Keir Starmer is in Wales and how he plans to start a green energy revolution. That's next.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I want to see a flagpole and I want to see the Union Jack when it's necessary. I must say I don't want to see some other flags maybe, but that's my opinion. I'm classed as a dinosaur, I'm an oldie. So, I go for what I want to know.
Well, you're not a dinosaur in our books. What would you say to the people who were complaining about the Union flag and saying that it's a sign of national? What's your response to them?
Well, in this village, best thing is for them to get out of it. I'm being quite blunt. That's how I feel. I've lived in this village 60-odd years, 62 years, nearly 63 years. We've never had this problem. In our early days, we all helped each other. No one went against anybody. We agreed things. We used to have meetings up the village hall, as it was then. And it was all OK, but all of a sudden we've got newcomers coming in, and I'm not against it because we've got quite a few, and a lot of them are damn nice people, but we've just got one or two who are a bit anti. And, they don't do nothing much for the village, but they soon put the spoke in when we want to do something like that. That's my feeling.
But you think we should be proud of our national symbols, proud of our national flag?
Definitely, yeah. I was in the army. I only did national service, and when I finished national service, I was ill for a while actually. But anyhow, and then I went and joined the prison service, and that's why I've worked in things which the flag is important to us. We should always be proud of it. Not like these people that say we shouldn't have it because it might upset somebody because it's not their flag. Well, so what? It's our flag, so we should be proud of it. Sod the rest of them. Excuse my... but that's me.
The People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. Now, Sir Keir Starmer's agenda is in full swing as he backs more working from home and confirms plans to introduce a right to switch off and staff not to be contacted out of office hours.
And today, the Prime Minister is continuing his busy streak as he's attempting to supercharge the economy with efforts to make Britain clean and have its clean energy superpower on a visit to a wind farm. I'm sure that makes sense as I try and read that, in West Wales. Well, earlier we spoke to the Secretary of State for Wales, Joe Stevens, who explained it much better than I did.
Is on his second day of a visit to Wales, and he's with the First Minister, Eluned Morgan, in Carmarthenshire today, visiting an onshore wind farm. We haven't had a ban on onshore wind in Wales, where there had been in England under the previous Conservative government. We've lifted the ban in England, and today's visit is about showing how two Labour governments, one in Wales, one in Westminster, can work together to deliver that energy security, to bring down bills and to create new jobs through green energy so that we reach that target of clean power in the United Kingdom by 2030.
Well, we're joined now by GB News political correspondent Olivia Utley. Good to see you this morning, Olivia. And this is Sir Keir Starmer's plan to make Britain a clean energy superpower. How's he going to do that?
Well, there aren't very many details, to be honest. It's all sounding a little bit woolly. Keir Starmer is in West Wales today to look at the way that the Welsh Labour government has brought in these new wind farms. He wants to use some of that knowledge to bring to the Great British Energy Plan, that 8.3 million plan over the next couple of years to transition Britain to clean energy more quickly. But I think if you read between the lines a little bit, what this meeting in Wales, what this sort of Welsh charm offensive is really about, is trying to keep the Welsh First Minister on side. It looks as though there are some problems brewing for both the Welsh First Minister and for Keir Starmer. The Welsh First Minister has said that she wants to add a splash of colour to her time in office. She has obviously taken over from Vaughan Gething after a pretty tumultuous time in the Senedd. And to have a splash of colour, you need some money. Keir Starmer isn't particularly interested in giving Wales any more money. He's more concerned about plugging the gaps in public spending than he is in splashing cash. And he's really financially painted himself into a corner in that he said that he won't really raise any taxes. So there's a bit of a disagreement there. There is also, of course, a disagreement over what happens with Tata Steel. Tata Steel is a huge employer in Wales. The whole town of Port Talbot, I was there last week, is completely dominated by the steelworks. And because of the previous government's plans to move over to greener energy, the Port Talbot has had to close its major furnace and is replacing it with electric furnace, putting about 2,800 jobs on the line. Keir Starmer is talking about mitigating those job losses. He's in conversations with the unions. He's giving out a package of 13.9 million. Might sound like a lot, but doesn't go that far when 2,000 jobs have been lost, plus all the people in the supply chain, etc., who will be affected. So I think this sort of, look, aren't we great friends? Aren't Wales and England going to be working so closely together from now on? Is actually hiding quite a lot of rumbling disagreement beneath the scenes.
Indeed, yeah. All right. Thanks very much, Olivia. Appreciate it. Well, let us know your thoughts at home on all of this as well, because it's something that we talk about quite a lot in the programme, how on earth we're going to, first of all, cope with incursions into the green belt, and also then this talk of, you know, trying to fire up the economy, people working from home. I'm sure you've got strong opinions. Send them to gbnews.com/your say.
Do stay with us. Paul Coit is going to be here very shortly with all the sport. That's next.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest on the roads across the UK this morning for a Tuesday. In Leicestershire, the southbound M1, heavy traffic and a lane closure there due to a vehicle having its tyre changed. That's junction 22 at Colville to junction 21A for Leicester North. In West Yorkshire, the northbound M1, one lane is closed due to a broken down vehicle at junction 40 for Ossett Wakefield. The London-bound M20 in Kent, partially blocked due to a broken down vehicle, junction 9 at Ashford to junction 8 for Leeds Castle and the Maidstone services. Clockwise M25 in Essex, the exit slip road partially blocked due to an earlier broken down vehicle at junction 30 for Lakeside and Purfleet. In Gloucestershire, westbound on the M4, two lanes are closed due to an accident at junction 22 for the M49. And the London-bound M40 in Buckinghamshire, delays due to an earlier accident just before junction 4 for the High Wycombe Handy Cross roundabout. Traffic's looking particularly slow there. You're up to date.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes and Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, it is time now to go through all the sport. Paul Coit is here to bring us up to speed, and it's getting warmed up for the Paralympics. Not long to wait now.
It is. That's coming up very soon. We're only 8 days away now, so that's going to happen in Paris, of course. See, the thing is, it was London 2012 that, again, transformed the Paralympics. There were less people that used to go to the Paralympics compared to the Olympics, whereas when it came to London, then everything changed.
I went to the Paralympics in London.
Did you see Oscar Pistorius?
I did.
Yeah, oh, wow.
It was amazing. Yeah.
I mean, he was the pin-up boy, wasn't he?
He was at that time.
Yeah.
Whatever happened to him after that? I never really...
Don't get into it.
Yeah. So anyway, it was from there, and then Rio, and then Tokyo. So it's a huge event in itself. But obviously things have got to be changed. I mean, I think we've got something of some of the venues around Paris. For the Paralympics. I think if we can have a look at that, there we are. Look, this is all the preparation that's going on. Where they had the beach volleyball, which was just underneath the Eiffel Tower, is now going to be a football pitch for blind football. But the amazing thing, that the things that they have to change...
Yes, is this what the gap is in between the Olympics and the Paralympics? It's the prep.
Exactly. There's a lot of prep that has to go on, because you can't just go, right, OK, now we're going to do this one. For example, I was only reading about this the other day, and I wasn't aware of it. Although I know about, with blind football, there's a bell which is in the ball, because obviously it's hearing that is used more than sight for obvious reasons. But they even have to be very careful with the pitch, because they don't want echoes, because noises could cut. So it's a lot of work that has to go into it. So all that work is going into 8 days until the Paralympics begin. So we're very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm so excited for that. Should we have a quick look at the football?
Yes, we should. Leicester. One.
How are you feeling?
I'm OK. Spurs,
I mean, come on, toughen up.
I'm really disappointed. What do you mean? I'm really disappointed.
It could have been worse. That's what I keep saying. It's a draw.
It always
it's only a game. I thought you were going to say next.
It is only a game. It's only football, Coity.
Oh, no, Jamie Vardy is 37 years old. There he is, and he scores for Leicester.
You were calling him old all morning.
Well, he is, as far as football is concerned. He's ancient. It's like he should be a manager or a chairman now, but still managed
retired, frankly.
Well,
from
that's
everything.
what I would have preferred. That actually, that's the first goal. Pedro Porro scored for Spurs, and Spurs were in the first half. We're playing terrific, and everybody's saying this is going to be 3, this is going to be 4. Leicester, who are newly promoted, it's like, well, they're not like they used to be when they were playing in the Premier League. And then Jamie Vardy scores, and then the tide turns, and then Spurs just kind of were a little on the back foot, and so it ended up 1-1.
They got the momentum, didn't they?
They did get the momentum. That's exactly what sport is all about.
Yeah.
And Jamie Vardy was giving it all it was like he was pointing. I'm thinking, now what are you doing? So he's looking over at the Spurs fans. He's pointing. I thought, what are you?
You're not a big fan of Jamie Vardy.
What are you playing? I never said that for a moment. So anyway, points at his Premier League badge.
Yeah.
And then he points at the Spurs fan. He's doing like this 1, like that, and then pointing at the Spurs fans and going 0. As if to say, well, and I'm thinking, well, what is all that about? But what he was trying to say was, I've won a Premier League and you haven't. It's like that. It's like there's no need for that, was there?
But for Spurs, they had such a good start to the last season, right? That you were hoping that things would start the same way but end differently.
Correct. But Spurs did draw their first game away at Brentford. Then things turned after that. It's early days for everybody. It's early days for Leicester. It's early days for Spurs, and there's one game in the Premier League. So there's still hope.
I'm not giving up. Joyful that the season is underway, because I know Eamonn is bereft over the summer when there's no football. Do you enjoy the lull? Have you enjoyed the Olympics sort of
You know I love the Olympics.
I know, but it always just blows my mind that, Eamonn was counting down the days until...
He doesn't... I don't think he loves the Olympics like I love the Olympics.
Yeah.
But at the end of the season, most football fans I speak to
are ready for a rest.
We're ready for a rest now. And then by the time you get to July, you're thinking, right, we're ready to get going again. We're very excited.
I just think it's a bit early, August, don't know. I just think it should start in September.
Usually it's quite hot, isn't it?
Are you telling me, Izzy, that you're not quite ready?
I'm not quite ready, for more of this.
Okay.
Hours of this every day. But anyway, that's not the spirit.
There we are. So 1-1, all over. So the first week is over. There's only another 50 weeks or so to go. So something to look forward to. I do want to mention, though, we were mentioning the Paralympics, but in the Olympics, we've got an Australian cyclist. Yeah, he is a defector. It is. It's just like the old days of the Cold War. Yeah. So he won 3 medals for Australia. His name's Matt Richardson, and he is the boyfriend of Emma Finucane. There he is, celebrating his silver medal.
So this isn't about wanting to improve his chances of getting a medal or better resources in the UK. It's about love.
It is.
Could well be.
It's got to be.
I'm still trying to work out the actual... I think it's probably the whole thing together. It all fits in very nicely. But yeah, so he was born in Kent. So essentially he's a Brit. But then he moved over to Australia when he was a young boy, and that's where he started cycling.
It's
and
a
now
homecoming.
He's decided that's it. And you know what? And if he wins medals, we welcome him back.
Oh, absolutely.
Welcome him back
even
with
if he
open arms.
doesn't, quite.
Yeah, we'll take anything we've got. We'll take anything we've got. But anyway, so he's going to be now representing Britain, should he be chosen, of course, in 4 years' time.
Fingers crossed. Best of luck to him.
And Australia, they're very stoical about it.
Yeah.
They're sort of like, OK,
They've got so many.
He was born there. We don't want him anyway. I think it's probably more of that going on.
Well, they probably wanted him when he was winning golds, but anyway.
Exactly. So that's it. That's the Australians. Did win gold. Off you go. So he's going to be coming to us.
Thank you
very much.
Stay with us. Still to come, we're making the news with Alex Armstrong and Nikki Hodgson, and we'll be finding out why ice lolly licking might be added to school curriculums. That's after this.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Michael found the recipe for success without going to university. Instead, he went looking for answers inside of a kitchen. The 22-year-old has just finished a Level 2 course in professional cookery at UCB, a college in Birmingham.
When I started UCB, I was expecting to be so intense from day one, but it's not. It sort of builds up, so to the point where you get comfortable. And building that comfort is a huge part of becoming a chef, because you need to be comfortable being in your own skin.
This week, tens of thousands of students get their A-level results. The college wants them to remember university isn't the only option after school, and West Midlands Mayor Richard Parker agrees.
University is the right route for lots of our young people, but there are other pathways to getting access to qualifications that will give young people the skills they need to succeed in life.
Further education principal Rosa Wells says apprenticeships and technical courses are also great routes to a career.
Here at University College Birmingham, we offer vocational courses. These are hands-on technical courses that can give people a different opportunity, something different to school. So we've got brilliant facilities that really give students industry standard training.
A skills shortage across the UK means youngsters learning trades are desperately needed. 36% of job vacancies are due to shortages. The Labour government's new body, Skills England, has been created to bring training providers and businesses together with local and national authorities plus unions to target trade gaps and regional requirements. Michael's now finishing his qualification. Where he goes next is down to him.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
She could have said storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Oh, we're going through the papers now. There's lots to get through. Political commentator Alex Armstrong and author and broadcaster Nikki Hodgson. Morning, you two.
Morning. Morning.
And Nikki, we're going to start with electrical appliances being thrown away in Britain. Apparently,
whatever for, it's
we're
the
all
best thing
throwing them
ever.
away. I love
Oh
the
my
air
goodness.
fryer. I know.
It's pretty shocking. So apparently more than 2.5 million Brits are banning a small gadget every year. And, you know, this is everything from air fryer to the latest, I don't know, high-tech remote to, I don't know, any kind of gadget that we fall for. And, I mean, the issue is that we just don't have enough we don't have a good recycling system, do we? We don't have people coming to our doors. It's too difficult because you have to take it to the tip. Yeah. Why can't council say on Mondays we come and collect batteries, on Tuesdays we get
money.
air fryers
It's
or
the
whatever?
money. It's the
But
money
you know what I'm
costs.
saying? But the cost to the environment, the cost to our waste is just absolutely
Do you know what it
horrific.
is, though, Nikki? Is that electric appliances have got so cheap now. If you go, there's so many apps out there that, like, I think it's Timu, something like that do super cheap things, Chinese goods at £5 for people, and they get them and they're rubbish, and then they chuck them out in 6 months.
It's also
problem.
twice.
But, you know, my mum the other day, God bless her, was making a mango mousse. I don't ask.
Oh, yeah.
And she got out her blender. 50 years old.
Yes, my mum has her blender. It's probably the same age.
There's built-in obsolescence in everything that you buy now. It just stops working.
And
even my phone.
Yes,
about
2
years top.
They purposefully put things at a point at which they break, and we've got to reverse that because we have too much waste on the planet. But yeah, it's just I'm not blaming people for doing it because it's too difficult to find a place to throw it away.
So how many bins would you like?
10. Actually 11, specifically an extra one for electrical appliances.
Oh dear. Right, Alex, you think that ice lollies should be part of the school curriculum?
No,
Well, perhaps
I
it's
don't
not
think
you,
that.
it's
Let me
the
just-
Guardian.
Oh, actually, no.
Let me just clarify.
Okay.
I don't think that
Hit me
this
with
is
it.
really... Well, actually, yeah, maybe I do. So,
Do you know what? Now I've read it, I think this is actually quite a good idea.
you know what? You're
Yeah.
right, and I think this is a good idea, so I take it back. I do think this is a good idea. So what they're proposing is that ice lollies should be brought back into the curriculum because... Basically, if you narrow it down, it's that kids don't have enough lived experience anymore. They're so digitalised or in a textbook. And they basically want them to understand the difference between hot, cold and otherwise through experiences. Now, I don't know how many kids haven't had an ice lolly, but it's really about that, trying to get them into that old school thinking of teaching again, where they... You know, whether they like the taste, how your taste buds work. There's all this biology and chemistry.
I think it's a great idea.
Well,
Nikki, your kid, your daughter is not yet school age.
No, but she's already learning these
She's
things.
learning these
But the issue I have with this story is that primary is too late. So at nursery, she's already cooking, learning Spanish. She digs in soil, she digs in sand. All the things they're proposing to do at primary age, she's already doing at 18 months old. They
she's
can do
learning
it.
Spanish at 18 months
Yeah, well, you can start. You can start. The younger, they're like sponges at that age. So you've got to shove all the information into them.
But all I was going to say is once they're at school, I have a particular bugbear because there's all this talk about healthy eating and childhood obesity, and then every other day there's a fundraiser with cakes. And I can't stand it. And I'm like, I don't want my child to come out of school and have cake.
I agree
but
about
ice
that.
lollies are an absolute fine...
They're a healthy treat.
educational. Teach them some chemistry while they're at it. Hydrate them.
Give them a treat.
Not too many calories.
Let them enjoy themselves.
Everybody's happy.
Yes.
What's not to love?
I used to love a nice
It's a lolly revolution.
Yeah, why not?
It's about making lessons fun and interactive, isn't it?
Completely. I'm making physics and chemistry relevant to you and your actual life.
And we need to be doing that, especially with young girls as well.
Have you read Lessons in Chemistry, either of you, by the way? Just speaking about girls and chemistry.
No. Good?
Fantastic book. Yeah, won one of the big book prizes a couple of years ago. But anyway, I highly recommend it. Really great read.
Nikki, Izzy's very excited about this one. The supermoon.
Well, I
apparently
saw
it's been
it
a glowing
yesterday.
orb.
Did you see it from your own home?
yesterday? Yes. As I was driving in this morning, it was under clouds.
That's
So I
right,
could just
yeah.
see it
Yeah.
through the cloud, but yesterday it was bright, it was low, it was huge.
Massive, wasn't
and it was actually breathtaking.
They're absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah.
And we talk about once in a blue moon, but once in a blue supermoon is even rarer. I mean, the sort of slightly negative aspect is it's because it's to do with fires in America that are casting smoke particles over the light. But that's just something that's always happened. There's always been fires. And the pictures in the papers this morning are just so dazzling. Apparently, if you didn't see it last night, tonight, although it won't be full anymore because now it'll be waning, it will still be potentially more beautiful and more visible.
Yeah.
So have a look tonight.
See, I didn't see it at its peak.
Have you seen it yet?
No, see, I'm very bad, Alex. I don't look up.
No, you see, not enough people look up to the stars anymore, do they?
No, I don't look up to the stars.
So I caught it on the way home. I caught it on the way home, and I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow.
It doesn't look real, does it?
It doesn't look real. I've never seen this so red.
With Jennifer Aniston and guys, help me out. When it's a beautiful day and she reaches out with Jim Carrey.
I don't know what film it is.
I know the film. Yeah, I do get the. I got the reference. But
no idea.
It's a good film.
It's a good film. It's a good film. So look tonight. That's your homework.
There you go.
Bruce Almighty.
Bruce Almighty.
Thank you,
Oh, yes, great.
Yes, that's a
great
good film. Alex.
Yes.
This is an interesting one, isn't it, in the Daily Mail? It's about the power that unions hold over Labour, which is a concern of many at the moment, isn't it?
Yeah,
a bit more.
Yeah, well, I think let's draw a lot of contrasts between the new Labour government, the last Labour government we actually had, to the current one, and the big differences really are the amount of power that the unions now have in government, and I think the reason why this is so topical at the moment is because of all of the strikes and then the pay rises going out. And, of course, we're seeing the government a slight bit of egg on its face because they thought they were going to stop the rail strikes. Now they're back on again.
Different dispute, though.
Different dispute, indeed. And so what this is saying here is that there are how many different Labour ministers and cabinet ministers who basically are funded by the unions. And there's so many of these union people, 13 barons, they call him, sit on the party's National Executive Committee. That's the committee that writes the policy for Labour. Now, I think if we were talking about the Tories, they're not that long ago, they'd say, oh, they're in bed with all these businesses and all their stuff here. We have to then talk about the unions as well and have a fair debate about how much power they now have in the country.
From the perspective of Labour, the problem has been in recent years they haven't been close enough to the unions. And that's why they were, struggling to have a hold. I mean, we're not in Arthur Scargill territory here, are we?
But hang on a minute. Under Jeremy Corbyn, they were very much.
Well, that's when they started to he was the person that was like, we need to rebuild the relationship because otherwise we don't have working people on the side of Labour. So from their point of view, and also let's just go back to the Tories, PPE, the scandalous contracts that were given out to their mates and the money that was wasted, taxpayer money.
I certainly don't disagree on that point, but I still think that we've got to have a more broad perspective and a broader debate in this country about outside influences that aren't always in the best interest of the whole country.
Yeah, well, there's a conflict, isn't there, when you have a union where their stated ambition is to protect the rights of the worker, whereas the government's, intention should be for all people and in the best interests of the country.
Yeah. But obviously the Labour Party is always going to have that close relationship with workers. So, for Labour, it's a good move.
Well, for sure, and it's certainly a lucrative one for Labour as well. I just, I think it causes some discomfort amongst most Brits to know that there's undue influence from potentially quite political people.
I'd rather have that than billionaires that have money up the wall.
I don't disagree on the spaffing of money, but I also think that unions are sometimes the ones that take a lot of productivity away from our country, and I want people to be more productive. I want to see our economy get better.
And do you know how we get more productive? We work less, we work shorter weeks, and we work from home.
You see, I think that's nonsense. That's union nonsense right there, Nikki, isn't it?
But there are concerns, aren't there, about what's coming down the track? If Labour's settling with train drivers, public sector workers, I mean, are you opening the door to whoever wants a pay rise?
Well, and that's always traditionally been the problem for Labour. It's how much power do the unions end up wielding, and that's what we saw in the 1980s. But, I mean, you have to negotiate with them, otherwise you end up with a whole public sector on strike. That's the end.
Yeah, but then where is it going to stop? Because we're seeing the pay rise hasn't stopped anything yet.
Well, also, how is the average person, the taxpayer, going to be affected in all of this? They've said they're not going to tax working people, but they're going to be workarounds. Are the pensioners going to be the ones that pay the price for this? You're seeing public sector pay rises, and then the pensioners having their winter fuel allowance.
And inflation will go up because that's
You're seeing inflation going up. You're seeing all sorts of penalties like inheritance tax or capital gains or whatever it might be.
The money has to come
You have to remember,
money has to come from somewhere.
The unions haven't necessarily had a good track record when it comes to Labour. I mean, Jeremy Corbyn's a good example of that, and you also had Ed Miliband, who famously won because the unions backed him over his brother. People would look at that and say, actually, they probably got rid of the good new Labour years,
the leader we never had.
There you go.
We
That's
still
right.
think about it.
Well, there you go. That's the union's fault, isn't it?
Yeah, I can take that point.
You know, yeah.
Right, we've got time for one more, probably. Where should we go? What do we think?
Should we do vapes?
Let's do some vapes, yeah. This is a worrying story, Nikki.
So we hear so much about children and vapes, and in particularly the amount of illegal vapes that come into this country from Heathrow. You know, they're full of all kinds of dangerous metals and substances, and we've known about that for a long time. But this is a really shocking turn. It's an investigation done by the Daily Mail, and it's saying that the rise in child victims of vapes laced with drugs like spice, for example, it has gone up 7-fold in the past couple of years. And let's just remind ourselves, spice is an illegal drug. It's extremely dangerous. It can cause paralysis and psychosis, and you do not want to go through that at any age, let alone as a child. We've got to somehow find a way to crack down on illegal vapes. That was Wes Streeting's main thing that he was banging on about before Labour were elected, and I'd like to see some more action from him on it.
Yeah, it seems to be super unregulated. There's so many kids who are just getting these single-use vapes from anywhere, and they're very tasty as well for young people. So they've got a sweetness to them. They're not like cigarettes.
And part of it's the packaging, the marketing, the bright colours.
Bright colours. We've really got to regulate them as much as we regulate cigarettes, and I think we're doing a disservice to young people.
Also, I think there needs to be a big education rollout because kids still think it's cool.
And they think it's safe.
And they have to realise it's not.
And they have to realise it's not. The way that they've been educated about smoking, and it's just one of those things that we're going to look back and think, why did we not act more quickly on that?
30% of 16 to 17-year-olds in this country have tried vaping. I mean, it's
That's terrifying.
And admitted to it.
We've got to go. Alex, Nikki, thanks so much. We've enjoyed having you today. Here's Aidan McGivern with the weather.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Some sunshine around today, but also a number of heavy showers, along with gusty winds, making it feel unseasonably unpleasant. We will see some sun, though, first thing across parts of the Midlands into Wales, the south and southwest. There will also be a lot of cloud around, and there'll be increasingly heavy and frequent showers moving in, especially to the north and the west. And western Scotland prone to longer spells of rain, along with a strengthening wind, 50-mile-per-hour gusts near coasts and hills. So all in all, an unsettled and changeable day towards the northwest. Fewer showers in the southeast, and in the sunshine feeling pleasant enough. The same can't be said for western Scotland as the winds pick up and those showers gang together to form longer spells of wet weather across Argyll, West Highland, into parts of the Central Belt, for example, heading into the evening. Northern Ireland also prone to frequent and heavy downpours, especially across the north and the west. Showers moving through western England and Wales, but fewer downpours through the Midlands, the south and southeast. And a fine end to the day here, it has to be said, with fewer clouds compared with how we start things. Now, Tuesday night and into Wednesday brings further showers into the north and west, but those showers tend to fade away as the night progresses, and we'll see some clear spells developing. A fresh night to come, 11 or 12 Celsius for most, single figures in some sheltered rural parts, but actually some decent sunny spells in the south and east first thing Wednesday before it turns increasingly cloudy from the west, and that cloud will bring spells of rain by the afternoon into western Scotland and Northern Ireland, eventually that rain spilling into northwest England and Wales. It's going to turn heavier and more persistent through Wednesday night and Thursday, risk of localised flooding in western Scotland.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News. The latest GB News travel.
Hello, good morning. I'm Andy Hilbert with the latest across the UK for a Tuesday morning. In Leicestershire, the southbound M1, that's heavy at the moment. It's a vehicle that needed its tyre changed earlier that's causing the queues. Junction 22 at Colville to junction 21A for Leicester North. In West Yorkshire, the northbound M1, there's a lane closed due to a broken down vehicle at junction 40 for Otterton Wakefield. And in Essex, the clockwise M25, the exit slip road partially blocked due to an earlier broken down car. That's at junction 30 for Lakeside and Purfleet. In Gloucestershire, the westbound M4, 2 lanes are closed due to an accident at junction 22 for the M49 interchange, and also in Berkshire, the westbound M4, a lane blocked there at the moment on the slip road to the services at Reading Services. It's the roadworks there, obviously, is causing some issues, I'm afraid, this morning. So just be aware of that, of course, if you're going to be using the M4. A little bit busy in parts. Europe Today.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours, but time is ticking. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. A super yacht celebration turns tragic.
Yes, the tech tycoon Mike Lynch is still missing and feared dead off the coast of Sicily.
Along with his 18-year-old daughter Hannah and 5 other passengers, all of whom were there to mark Lynch's acquittal in a 12-year fraud trial.
US President Joe Biden has been wiping away tears as he hands the baton on to Kamala Harris at the Democratic National Convention.
Are you ready to vote for freedom? Are you ready to vote for democracy and for America? Let me ask you, are you ready to elect Kamala Harris and Tim Walz?
The Prime Minister cracks on with his green agenda as he prepares to visit a Welsh wind farm today alongside the new First Minister Eluned Morgan. Well, earlier on, the Welsh Secretary Jo Stevens told us more about Sir Keir Starmer's ambition.
Today's visit is about showing how 2 Labour governments, one in Wales, one in Westminster, can work together to deliver that energy security, to bring down bills and to create new jobs through green energy.
80% of mums say their colleagues don't appreciate their role as mothers. The soap star Natalie Cassidy joined us very shortly to share her experience.
For most of us, a blustery day with frequent showers around, but also some sunshine. How much sunshine and how many showers you get will depend entirely on where you are. I'll have the full details in the forecast coming up soon.
It's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Isabel Webster.
And I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
This is a fast-paced story, huge British involvement, of course, and I'm talking about the tragedy unfolding in the Mediterranean, where the British tech tycoon Mike Lynch and his 18-year-old daughter are among 6 tourists still missing after a luxury yacht sank in a tornado off the coast of Sicily.
Well, the British-registered 56-metre Bayesian had 22 people on board when it went down after being struck by a tornado.
Well, divers are resuming their search for the wreck this morning after the search came to a halt last night. 15 people have been rescued, including the wife of Mike Lynch and a 1-year-old baby girl.
Well, we're joined now by GB News Home and Security Editor Mark White. Good to see you this morning, Mark. And tell us about the search, which has resumed this morning.
Well, some very interesting details emerging this morning from the Italian Fire and Rescue Service, who coordinate search and rescue operations across Italy on land and on the sea. And a diver has been speaking to local Italian press about what he found when he dived down to the site of the wrecked yacht on the seabed. Now, he said it's 48 metres down on the seabed. It's lying on its side, but there appears to be no damage to the vessel at all that is apparent from anything the divers have been able to see in their interim inspection. They were not able to gain access inside the yacht itself because the passageways were blocked up with debris, floating furniture and other debris inside the yacht itself. So they've got to work out a plan to be able to move that to get further into the yacht. They've been able to see, sadly, the bodies of individuals through the portholes inside the yacht, but they've not specified how many. And of course, there are 6 people, including Mike Lynch and his daughter Hannah, who are missing, believed to be inside that yacht. Now, the hope is, given the size of that vessel, it's more than 180 foot long, the fact that it's on its side and appears undamaged, it's possible there may be air pockets inside that yacht, and that 1 or 2 of the those on board may have been able to get to an air pocket. But of course, it just happened so very quickly at about 4 a.m. yesterday morning, and that boat seems to have been caught by this very strong wind, tipped over and sank almost immediately.
From sort of maritime experts and you know, no one wants to speculate at this point, but sort of analysis of this ship. This was a vessel that was built to cross the Atlantic. It did so many times. It was, you know, top of the range, literally a super yacht designed for people to live on it. 10 crew on board at the time, 22 in total people. But it was the huge mast that has got lots of people talking. 76 metres, perhaps the tallest in the world, or if not the second tallest. And wondering whether or not that may have contributed to its rapid sinking to the bottom of the sea.
Yes, I mean, this was a super yacht in its very essence. It was designed to sail, to catch the wind and to sail the ocean wave. Its sleek lines, the very fact that it had such a large, tall mast, and that differs from what most people probably these days think of as a super yacht. These big sort of vulgar expressions of what a super yacht is that are owned by often these Russian billionaires that are no more than motor vessels. They don't actually sail the ocean wave. This was a proper sailing yacht, and you're right to talk about the size of that mast. 75 metres tall, it was the second tallest mast in the world, and that brings a degree of instability in any yacht. They have to weigh that out in the bottom, the keel of the yacht, to put weights in there to ensure that it is buoyant and it doesn't tip over. But of course, if you have very strong winds, unless the captain's able to steer that yacht into the winds and ride out the waves, then there's a real danger of it tipping over, as it clearly did at 4 a.m. yesterday morning.
And Mark, just to reflect the bizarre development of Mike Lynch's co-defendant, who has also, well, died at the weekend.
Yeah, this is Stephen Chamberlain, as you say, a co-defendant for years being dragged through the American legal system in the federal court. They both decided to fight fraud charges against them that were brought about by the sale of their company to Hewlett-Packard claiming that they'd vastly overestimated the worth of the company. They'd always denied that, and a jury in the end believed them, even though they were given like a 3% chance. Nobody really wins in the US federal court. Most people take a plea agreement and never go to trial in the first place, but he fought it and he won. And then to get the news that Stephen Chamberlain had died just at the weekend in Cambridgeshire, knocked over by a vehicle when he was out running. And then, of course, just 2 days later, for this tragedy to engulf Mike Lynch's super yacht with lawyers, senior lawyers who'd helped him, that were on his defence team fighting this case in the US. It is the most bizarre and terrible tragedy. And of course, there will be conspiracy theories abound because of the very fact that you've got Mike Lynch's co-defendant and key lawyers that have all been caught up in this. But everything we're told points to the weather, certainly with regard to the incident in Italy.
Mark White, good to see you this morning. Thank you for bringing us up to speed on those developments.
Yeah, it's just one of those stories where just one element of this would have been remarkable in and of itself. You know, the success story, building his company, selling it for so much money, advising the government on the sort of birth of AI, then getting embroiled in this long legal battle with America, winning against the odds, his daughter's personal success, and now this tragedy. The idea, though, that there are these air pockets on board the vessel, and they could be, I mean, it doesn't bear thinking about. I mean, I think it sounds highly unlikely, but you just don't want to give up hope, do you, at this stage?
Well, we can only hope, can't we, that they found those air pockets. But, of course, Mark White will have those developments if we get any throughout the morning.
Some breaking news to bring you now. And we're hearing, whilst Antony Blinken, who is, of course, Secretary of State, is there trying to negotiate a ceasefire, that actually the Israeli military have retrieved the bodies of 6 Israeli hostages who were being held in Gaza. The families of all of the victims have been informed. We're told they were found in the Khan Yunis area of southern Gaza. Now, the Hostages Family Forum have reiterated and welcomed the news, but reiterated their demands on the Israeli government to conclude a hostage release deal with the Gaza-based Palestinian militant group Hamas. And obviously that's what's up for discussion at the moment. And Antony Blinken, who's in the region, saying that this is probably the best and possibly the last opportunity at a ceasefire. But that breaking news, there were 250 hostages, of course, taken after October the 6th, but this is the retrieval of 6 hostages from Gaza.
Now to politics, and Sir Keir Starmer's agenda is in full swing as he spends time in Wales, where he hopes to kickstart Britain's role as an energy superpower.
Today, the Prime Minister will continue what is, frankly, a busy streak as he plans to visit a wind farm alongside the new First Minister of Wales, Ellen Morgan.
Well, we're joined now by GB News political correspondent Olivia Utley. Good to see you this morning, Olivia. This is all part of Sir Keir Starmer's plan, isn't it, to turn Britain into a clean energy superpower. But how exactly is he going to do that?
Well, that's a very good question, Ellie, and it isn't really clear. He has this plan for Great British Energy, a new sort of publicly owned energy company which is supposed to help Britain transition to greener energy, and it's supposed to create all sorts of jobs. But there's very little meat on the bones. Today, Keir Starmer is going to be in Wales on a sort of 2-day charm offensive. He's going to go and look at some wind turbines, some onshore wind turbines that the Welsh Labour government have set up in recent years. Of course, he's expected to say that the Welsh have done brilliantly on this and that he wants to learn from what they've done and try and implement something similar in England. Really, the purpose of this visit is basically to show a reset between relations between Cardiff and Westminster. Of course, under the previous government, the Conservative government in the UK and Labour government in Wales, the relationship was never particularly good. Keir Starmer wants to show that all that has changed. It's easier said than done, though. Yes, it's easier for a First Minister and a Prime Minister from the same party to be able to work together. But Wales wants a lot more public spending. Welsh NHS waiting lists are incredibly long, sort of 3 times as long as waiting lists in England. And, of course, all sorts of jobs, nearly 2,000 jobs are going to be lost if Port Talbot goes ahead with its plans to go green. So Wales wants money, and Westminster doesn't really want to give Wales any money. The financial plans for Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer are very, very tight indeed. They don't want to raise taxes. And so that relationship, it might look great on the surface today, but I think there's tensions bubbling under the surface.
OK, Olivia, thanks very much indeed. Well, speaking of taxes, we have £30,000 of tax-free cash available to give away in the Great British Giveaway.
Yeah, it's our biggest giveaway of the year so far. So have a think. What would you do with all of that extra cash? Here's how you can be in with a chance to win it.
We could be calling you with the news that you've won our latest Great British Giveaway, an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash.
Hi, I'm John from sunny North Yorkshire, and I've just won £20,000 in the GBNews Great British Giveaway. It didn't cost much to enter, but of course if you're not in, you can't win. And here I am, having won £20,000, and that's tax-free, so I'm rather pleased I did it.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
EasyJet is launching a new recruitment drive focused on attracting cabin crew members over 50 and those even considering retirement.
Well, the initiative is called Returnships and is inspired by research that suggests that 75% of people over 50 years old believe that now is the ideal time to embark on a new career.
Joining us now to discuss what it takes to embark on a second career as cabin crew is Helen Williams. Good morning, Helen.
Hi, good morning,
Helen.
Welcome. Just touching down in our studio.
It is. I've had a few days off and now I'm here.
So you are now cabin crew.
I am.
What inspired you to get into it? What did you do before? How did it all come around?
Oh, so when I graduated, I took an office job with my grad scheme, and that job lasted 6 months, and I started working for a European carrier. I did just over 5 years at that European carrier and had an absolutely fabulous time. I then went on to a wet lease operation with an Irish carrier and another mainline UK carrier. I then decided to have time out. I had a business, I had a family, I had children, and last autumn I decided, why not? Let's go back and do it all again. So returning to that European carrier that I'd worked at when I was in my early 20s.
And what is that like for you now, returning that bit older, having that life experience, having your children? Do you think that's been a benefit to you?
It's absolutely been a benefit. I mean, the amount of parents that thank me for helping me with their small children when they're crying on a flight. I am that person now.
When you went back for a second time, did you notice more sort of older people amongst your sort of colleagues?
I did. So when I returned onto my initial course in March of this year, just over half the course were over the age of 30.
Wow.
Which was absolutely phenomenal. And I was expecting to return and be with a lot of younger, 18, 19, 24. I was expecting to be that dinosaur. And that first day of training, to find out that I wasn't the dinosaur, you have no idea how exciting that was. And they've gone on, that particular group, to be phenomenal crew members.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Mark Dolan and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Right, speak to any mum I know, that's for sure. And the summer holidays, they just are a stressful time, and they are coming to a close soon. Lots of mums are going to be
breathing a sigh of relief about
that.
Yeah,
absolutely. New research has found that 20% of working mums are clocking up an additional 8 hours on shift at home every day on top of their regular jobs.
Well, that says 80% of those surveyed wish that their colleagues were made aware of all of those extra hours that they put in.
Well, let's speak now to one very famous mum, the actress Natalie Cassidy. Good morning. Great to see you, Natalie. I believe you're very proud to be a working mum. I am as well. I'm not saying I don't want to be a mum, and I'm not saying I don't want to work, but it's definitely not easy.
Well, absolutely. Good morning, Ellie and Isabel. How are you both? You good?
Yeah, we're good. How are you?
Good. I think it's such an amazing subject because, as you say, we're in the 6-week holidays. And it's just really tough for us mums, you know. Our job's never done, our work is never finished. And I think it's this movement, the real out-of-office movement, is something that just really resonates with me. And I think we should all talk more about how much work we do. I think a woman's work is never done.
Yeah. So paint a picture for us of your life, because you're an actress, you're often on set, aren't you? You can imagine they're really long days, really antisocial hours. And then you've got 2 little gorgeous girls at home as well.
I have Joni's 8, just turned 8 actually, and I have Eliza who's nearly 14. But I'm doing lots of varied things at the moment. So, you know, hours are very, very sporadic. You know, schedules come in quite late, and you just never know where you are and what you're doing. You know, fortunately, I do have good childcare, and sometimes Mark's at home. But I just think we all feel guilty. We have that mum guilt, you know. If you're working and being successful, you wish you were at home with the kids. And if you're at home, you're thinking, am I doing enough work?
Yeah, and of course the cost of childcare in this country means that a lot of families just frankly make that decision to have one of the parents stay at home, usually the mum, and they're just being squeezed out of the economy, and that's not good either.
Absolutely, absolutely. And, you know, this is why you know, research from Maltesers shows, as you say, once you've done your job as a working mum, you come home and you're doing another 8 hours on top of it. And this is just, you know, we should just talk about it more. And that's what this movement's about, you know, sharing it, talking to colleagues, and not always being the hero, because we all want to go, oh, I can do it, I can do everything. When actually we can say, do you know what, I'm finding this really hard today. And it's just about lightening that load.
Do you feel like the tide is turning on that, Natalie? Because Izzy was talking about this earlier on, that mothers have a tendency, definitely historically, just to crack on with it. It's just something that they are expected to do, that they do without moaning. And now it's like...
Are we getting to a stage where it go down that well? In my experience, I have had someone say to me, well, if you can't handle it, why do you have kids? You know.
Absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, exactly that. We just need to talk about it, and I think it's healthy, and I think that's the main thing now, that we should be brave enough to be able to say, do you know what, sometimes it's difficult, but I'm really proud to be a working mum, and I tell my daughters that. I work really, really hard, and it's a good work ethic for them, you know, and that's what, you know, this campaign's all about.
How do you think colleagues can best support working mums? What needs to change?
I think just the understanding of what goes on at home once you finish work, because, you know, it's very, very easy to think that you're going to go home, and people without children might think that you go home and you're out for dinner or you're laying on the sofa watching the TV. But it's the stuff that we have to fit in, isn't it? It's the washing, it's the ironing, it's the dentist appointments, you know, it's fitting in, seeing friends, children having meltdowns. So it's just about talking about those things to people who haven't got children, to try and make them understand that your day's not done when you go home.
Have you always had a positive response, or have you ever had people who've actually been a bit like, well, you know, why should we make allowances for you? I mean, we did a debate a little bit earlier on, and it was a female contributor who said, well, why should somebody be allowed to go for a walk every day at 3 p.m. just because they've got kids? I don't get to go for a walk every day at 3 p.m. And I was like, well, she's not just going for a walk, is she? She's going to pick up her kids from school, and then she'll carry on her work later. you get to go home a little bit earlier. But she didn't seem to be able to marry the two things up. I mean, is there some resistance still, do you think, from some parts of society?
I do think there's resistance, and that's what this is about. Do you know what I mean? This campaign and this movement is to try and get people talking about the fact that it has been awkward in the past, and some people don't understand a working mum's life, and that's why we need to try and talk about it and, you know, just get it out in the open, really.
Well, Natalie, I think it's so important that you're using your platform to talk about this, because I think it's the way that a lot of mums in this country feel. Just before we let you go, what projects have you got on at the moment? When are we next going to see you on our screens?
Well, I'm doing my podcast, Life with Nat, which is going great guns, and I'm really, really enjoying that. And that really is with the family, and I talk to my daughters and partner and family members, so that's really lovely. And I'm also filming a Channel 4 documentary at the moment called What's the Big Deal, which should be coming to our screens at the end of the year or maybe 25. So there's lots and lots. Busy working mum over here.
Yeah, sounds like it. Well, we look forward to it. All the best, and thank you for talking about such an important issue. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Have a great
Natalie.
day. Thank you.
Right, Britain's newsroom fast approaching at 9:30. Bev Turner and Dawn Neeson here, dressed as if they are working for an airline today.
Right, the options are we're Virgin Air stewardesses.
Yeah.
We are the world's oldest girl band.
I walked in and I said, oh my God, we're like the world's oldest girl band. Look at us. This is not deliberate. Old Spice. It's not deliberate. But anyway, I think we are here to serve our audience this morning. I think we look very smart.
And what are you serving them?
What are we serving them? That was a fabulous segue that slightly caught me off guard then. What are we talking about? Well, King Charles is doing an appearance this morning, so we're going to be taking a bit of that live, I think,
Yeah,
about
it's a
10
very,
o'clock.
very special trip that we can talk about at 10 o'clock, so all will be revealed then. We're also wishing you all a very Merry Christmas out there, hence the festive colours.
Stop it.
Because I had my first email wishing me a Merry Christmas, offering me a Christmas offer, basically, on Saturday.
Don't.
I'm actually allergic, and you're part of the problem if you're going to be talking about it on the programme.
It's the front page of the Daily Star. How can we avoid it? Come on, it's so typical. Obviously, we're going to America as well, too. I don't know if you saw it overnight, but I personally thought Joe Biden looked like he'd been wired to the mains. Suddenly, rather than Sleepy Joe, he was very, full of energy.
Very emotional as well.
Be more happy, may I suggest?
Oh, a bit bittersweet of goodbye from him, though, isn't it? He obviously, there has been a coup. He was pushed from the inside, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And we're going to be waiting to hear details, of course, about this extraordinary tragedy that broke while we were on air yesterday about the missing yacht in Sicily, and obviously still bodies to be recovered.
And Bev, what did you make of that working mums chat?
Well, when
I
she
knew
said
you'd have something to say about
when she said about 8 more hours, I'm like, 8 hours and the rest.
Really?
Oh, it's
good couple before you come in, and about 6 after school pickup from 3 o'clock.
But do you know
3
what?
till 7 when they're going to bed, or maybe 8, depends.
And do you know what it is, Isabel? It's as much as that, it's about the fact that you have no space in your head.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing.
Yeah.
It's not just the practicalities of doing the laundry and making sure the fridge is full and the dishwasher's done. It's not all that stuff.
Bed,
it's
homework,
you constantly thinking.
Play
the mental load.
The mental load. One of them this morning, mine has to get to a friend's house because she's going on holiday with her, and that's all going on. But despite that, we're going to concentrate.
We are. Well, one of us is.
It's stressful.
Lots to look forward to. Thank you, ladies. Thank you. You are back from 6 o'clock tomorrow morning.
I am. You're at Taylor Swift later on. Have a fabulous time. I'm back with Stephen Dixon bright and early, but you've got Bev and Dawn until midday. Thank you so much. See you tomorrow.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office for GB News. Some sunshine around today, but also a number of heavy showers, along with gusty winds, making it feel unseasonably unpleasant. We will see some sun, though, first thing across parts of the Midlands into Wales, the south and southwest. There will also be a lot of cloud around, and there'll be increasingly heavy and frequent showers moving in, especially to the north and the west, and western Scotland prone to longer spells of rain, along with a strengthening wind, 50-mile-per-hour gusts near coasts and hills. So all in all, an unsettled and changeable day towards the northwest. Fewer showers in the southeast, and in the sunshine feeling pleasant enough. The same can't be said for western Scotland as the winds pick up and those showers gang together to form longer spells of wet weather across Argyll, West Highland, into parts of the central belt, for example. Heading into the evening, Northern Ireland also prone to frequent and heavy downpours, especially across the north and the west. Showers moving through western England and Wales, but fewer downpours through the Midlands, the south and southeast. And a fine end to the day here, it has to be said, with fewer clouds compared with how we start things. Now, Tuesday night and into Wednesday brings further showers into the north and west, but those showers tend to fade away as the night progresses. And we'll see some clear spells developing. A fresh night to come, 11 or 12 Celsius for most, single figures in some sheltered rural parts. But actually some decent sunny spells in the south and east first thing Wednesday before it turns increasingly cloudy from the west, and that cloud will bring spells of rain by the afternoon into western Scotland and northern